across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Talk Drive, the home of free speech and common sense, of course. Thank you to Ian. What a lovely man Ian Collins is. Well, my wife says. Anyway, he's off home, or to my home, I've no idea. And back tomorrow from 1 o'clock. JK on Drive for the next 3 hours. Thank you for joining us. As ever, loads to talk about. You get my take, we'll get the experts' take, but most of all, we want your take, my friends. If you're watching on screen, you can see it. If not, you'll get me in your ears telling you. 0344 499 1000. The amazing Jodie is here taking your calls. That's what she said, the amazing Jodie. Ryan is here on WhatsApp. Miserable Ryan. I'm joking. Send him a voice note. He gets very upset if he doesn't get plenty. Start with... No, don't. 0344 499 1000 on the WhatsApp. You can email, of course. No, you can't. You can text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Amy, smiler, button pusher, and extraordinary technical person is also here looking her usual effervescent self. 3 minutes past 4. Where do we start with Keir Starmer? Does he get it? Does he, Elle? I sit here every day and I think to myself, are you ever going to wake up and realise that the British people are struggling? And you can't blame the pandemic or the war in Ukraine. There is a cost of living crisis. Food costs ridiculous amounts. People are struggling with energy bills. They're struggling with filling their car with petrol. They're struggling when they look at how you seemingly, Starmer, favour almost anybody but the British person, be that migrants, be that this Indian trade deal. We've talked, haven't we, about two-tier justice. We've talked about two-tier morality. You're saying to, I'm not even talking about people, I'm talking about companies. You're saying last October when Richard III held her budget and she said, we are going to increase national insurance contributions from some small businesses. We've heard from so many small businesses over the months all saying the same thing. That's just really difficult for us to continue trading because it's just with energy bills going through the roofs, with NI going up, with workers' rights continuing to increase, it's not viable for doing it. And so you don't do anything to help the British companies, the smaller British companies, which would, by the way, Keir Starmer, create the growth you keep pontificating about. No. What you've now done is you've signed a deal, a £5 billion deal with India. And before people jump up and down, this is nothing against India, but you're basically saying that tens of thousands of temporary Indian workers can come to this country. They won't pay national insurance, although ours has been hiked. And Indian companies won't pay national insurance, despite the fact that British companies have seen their NI contributions hiked. That's just a factual thing. To me, that is absolutely ridiculous. The Labour Party has just been battered in that by-election, battered in those local elections, because the British people are frankly saying, do you know what, with respect, what about us? And yet again, this man is utterly tone-bleeding deaf. 0344 499 1000. On top of that today, migrant accommodation, 3 times over the estimate. I give up. How much is it going to cost? I don't know if you know this, you've been listening to it and you probably have. £15 billion over 10 years to house illegal migrants. 15 billion, a tenth of that, 1.5 billion, was the saving when they took away the fuel winter allowance from pensioners, ladies and gentlemen. What about priorities in this country? What about spending the money that we have got, and we haven't got a lot, on things that matter? I bring it back to the people that matter. I don't know about you. Outrageous. And this story today, bring back Boris. Apparently the Conservatives can only defeat Nigel Farage's Reform UK if they find a way to bring back Boris Johnson, who is at this moment more popular than Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick. I probably have done a full twist on this. I'm very honest. I always try and be, even if it gets me in trouble. I used to sit here and I used to pontificate about how brilliant he was and he was the only person that could save this country. Boris Johnson sold the Tories down the river. Boris Johnson was all about net zero. Boris Johnson was, unfortunately, about high taxation. And he did bugger all about immigration. He came to power and he said it's going to be 20,000. It's now on 1 million. I think the Tory party, if you listen to what I said to Ian about that poll, if that was replicated from that constituency, Amesbury's constituency as was, if you replicated that across the United Kingdom at the next election, not a typical Tory seat, but if you went with that voting pattern, the Tories will be extinct. I hear Tory after Tory say, we're the oldest party, we've got the most this, we've got the most that. You might well do. I think they are losing touch by the minute. The latest opinion poll out today, put reform ahead of Labour, the Tories sinking another 3 points. Dire times for the Tories. Can they ever recover? 0344 499 1000. Is Boris Johnson the man? I'm publicly prepared to say no. I think he's yesterday's man. And here's a story for you, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a story for you that Ryan has found in the deep echelons of news. Applicants, love this, well done, Ryan, as young as 18 will be allowed to drive trains amid concerns over driver shortages. Brilliant. The minimum age to take on the role in Britain will be lowered from 20, the Department of Transport has announced. Rail services are frequently disrupted because several operators rely on drivers voluntarily working extra shifts. Try getting the train I get, it's never on bleeding time. Around 87% of cancellations made the night before a service is scheduled are caused by driver shortages. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow, I mean, I'd go for driverless trains if it was me. We're going to allow 18-year-olds to drive trains, which has led Ryan to come up with creatively what is one of the greatest questions ever given. What job would you not let an 18-year-old do? What job would you not want an 18-year-old to do? This new generation who have absolutely no idea of reality. I don't want them driving. I don't want them voting. I don't want... No, don't start. I've got too many of them. 0344 499 1000. What job would you not let an 18-year-old do? 87222. Start your message with the word talk. It's 8 minutes past 4. And we are live and exclusive across the UK with a legend as our first guest. A former... I mean, this man held one of the most important jobs in Parliament. Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. Was a Conservative MP for 75 years. I found him in a kitchen in Little Chef on the M1, and we've sort of rehabilitated him, and he's now a bit part commentator who resides in Spain, where he's attempting to write a book about other dodgy things. Nigel Evans, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm great, thank you very much. I've left Spain. I'm now in Dubai for a few days. So welcome to.
Look at you insatted in Dubai. What are you doing in Dubai, love? What's going on?
I'm not just red-faced. It is a tan.
Well, I think you look like you're on a world tour. Good man. Well, thanks for joining us live and exclusive. Can we start with you and I have these really candid conversations, and people always say afterwards that you are the sort of person who is always very honest about the government's failings, honest about the Tory failings. Keir Starmer's government, in my mind, is probably one of the worst examples of a government that doesn't seem to understand what people are saying and thinking and want, Nigel Evans. Whilst he's out there extolling the virtues of this Indian-UK £5 billion trade deal, tick, this country is on its backside. And in the midst of saying in the October budget, as I said just then, to British small and medium companies, we're going to raise national insurance, we're going to make it difficult for you to make money, we don't like anybody that's been successful because that's the way we are, because we're all basically Marxists, we're now going to say to temporary Indian workers, you don't have to pay national insurance, and we'll say to Indian companies, come here, you won't pay national insurance. This phrase two-tier gets thrown around. But this is now two-tier tax, isn't it, Nige? This is appalling as a look.
Yeah, it is appalling. And as I said, I'm speaking to you from Dubai. And if you want to come and find out where some of the thousands of the 10,000 who have left the United Kingdom since Keir became Prime Minister, then you don't need to look any further than Dubai, because they've got a very, very favourable tax regime. And in the United Kingdom, of course, Keir Starmer has one that really frightens away the rich. If the rich were still in Britain, they'd still be paying taxes to Rachel Reeves, which she could then be spending on all the public services, instead of which he's frightened them away. And we've got thousands of illegal immigrants coming in that are costing us billions every year. And so the equation just simply does not work. And part of the problem, Jeremy, is that people do not believe a word that Keir Starmer says. Even if he's saying that the Indian trade deal is great for Britain, nobody will believe him. And why? Because he reneged on his promises to look after pensioners. He reneged on his promise to pay waspy women what he said he would pay them. He reneged to the farming community by saying he would look after them and he was on their side, and then he introduced that death tax on them. I mean, there are so many people. It was only just before the general election, Starmer said, watch my lips, there will be no increase in council tax. And the average increase this April is 5%. So it's lie after lie after lie. So when he says, you know, trust me, this Indian trade deal is the best thing since sliced bread, then I'm afraid he's already lost the trust of the British people.
But even if you, I don't disagree with you at all, but if you strip it down, right, and you think about, I'm going to use a really young word, vibe, right? I'm old, I shouldn't use words like that. But if you have a sense of what people feel in this country, right? If you have an understanding that they're struggling for all sorts of reasons, be it the cost of food, the cost of petrol, the cost of electricity, the lack of job opportunities, everything, right? It's hard out there in every single business, right? Why would you then say, I'm about growth, I'm about making people successful and all that, and screw British companies whilst opening the door to companies from, in this case, India, and making it more accessible and easier for them to be profitable? That doesn't make sense, man. It can't make sense. It doesn't matter to me that it's Labour. We have a Labour government. This is what's wrong with so many politicians. I don't know whether they are seduced by power. They don't actually give a damn about the electorate. I don't know. But the British public will not in any way, put my life on it, vote this man back in a million years. He could give us all £1 million tomorrow. People do not, as you quite rightly said, trust that he cares enough and is doing a good job.
Well, whether he's listening or not, and I suspect he isn't, because following the hammering that he got last Thursday, all he said is he wants to go faster towards the direction he was already going in, which is, of course, the wrong direction. I think it's an absolute disaster. One of the worst starts to any government that has ever happened. I should suspect as well, looking at the MPs that are now sitting on his benches, a lot of them must be worried. A lot of them didn't expect to get elected in the first place, but they did get elected. Why? Because they promised the earth to so many groups of people. And now they've let down all of those groups of people. And you can't say we're going to have growth and then turn on entrepreneurs in the United Kingdom. And that's what he did with the national insurance increase. He said there would be no increase in national insurance. And then when he put it on the employers, he turned around and he said, well, no, this is the employers, not the employees. I'm sorry. That is just playing with words. And as I said, people really do not trust him. And there are so many entrepreneurs that feel fed up. A lot of them are going to be closing their businesses. Yep. This is an anti-growth government, and unemployment's going to go up. Prices are going to go up. And it's going to go up faster than his popularity is going down, that's for certain.
We're going to talk climbing Churchill's statue. We're going to talk Boris, but very quickly, migrant accommodation, we find out today, Nige. It's going to cost the British taxpayer £15 billion in the next 10 years. That's 3 times over the estimate. That is 10 times what the government saved by screwing the pensioners this winter. 15 billion quid when our public services are creaking, so many people are struggling, priorities again. You lot, you might have suggested Rwanda. Boris Johnson said 20,000. It's now at 1 million illegal migration. When the hell is somebody going to have whatever it takes to stand up and do something about a problem which is, forget all the activists, is bankrupting this country still further?
Yeah, Rishi should have had the guts to have enforced the Rwanda policy against whether it's the courts or whether it's the European Convention. If there was something wrong with the convention, then leave the convention. Right. If there's something wrong with the courts in interpreting the legislation, then pass emergency legislation. He would have had the support of the British people in doing it, instead of which he called an early election and has gone running. I mean, it was a disaster. You know, we can carry on saying sorry until the cows come home, but the fact is we had this great opportunity to do something about illegal immigration into the country, and we didn't do anything about it. I think there were 4 people who voluntarily went to Rwanda, and now, unbelievably, the Americans are looking to use Rwanda. They'll be using the accommodation that the Brits have paid for. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous, and yet at the same time, we're giving 500 million to the French so that they can help wave the small boats off from the French coast as they head towards the United Kingdom. It's absolutely bonkers, and no wonder people are so fed up. You're quite right. Billions of pounds being spent on housing illegal immigrants in the country, when he has turned round and said to pensioners, we haven't got the money to pay your winter fuel allowances. He says he's got tough choices. Well, no, it's an easy choice. You stop the boats and you give that money to pensioners. You don't pay Mauritius billions for taking the Chagos Islands from the United Kingdom. There are all sorts of things that he could be doing.
Do you and others in the Tory party, do you feel you could have done more to convince, be it Johnson or be it Sunak, to do the things that you're now saying? Is your conscience clear on that? Straight question to you, my friend. You're a friend of mine, but I ask it because the big issue is, I mean, today we've got them saying, you know, bring back Boris. I'll tell you about what I think about that in a minute. The truth is the Tories didn't do what they said they were going to do. How frustrating was that? Could you have done more?
Yeah, my conscience isn't clear. I didn't know that he was going to go for an early election. I thought that he was going to do what he said he would do, which would be to use the Rwanda scheme. He didn't have the guts to pull out of the European Convention if that was the problem. He didn't have the guts to pass emergency legislation in order that the courts didn't trip him over time and time again. And so, no, my conscience isn't right on this. And I still remember that voter who said to me during the general election, Mr. Evans, I'm voting for you, but your party is not going to win and I'm going to end up paying higher taxes. He was absolutely right. But when he thought it was just people who were going to see their council tax go up, it wasn't just them. It was pensioners losing 300 quid. It was employers having national insurance increases heaped upon them. I mean, there are so many people that have been hammered. So my conscience is not clear. We should have done a lot more. And the fact that we didn't, I think, was partly responsible for us getting a hammering on Thursday at the local elections, because people haven't forgotten and they haven't forgiven.
Today, very quickly, a couple of quick things. The Conservatives can only defeat Nigel Farage's Reform UK, not the Labour Party, if it finds a way to bring back Boris Johnson, a new poll has suggested today. There's a rumour of a plot to oust Badenoch already, but apparently Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are not as popular as Boris Johnson. Now, I'm going to put myself firmly front and centre here and tell you that I sat on this station for 3 years and extolled the virtues of this man and believed that he had the charisma and the ability. I thought you were barking mad to get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. But if you strip it back and you look at what Nigel Farage at Reform is saying about low taxation, a stronger military, strong borders, more police, deal with knife crime, the very essence of conservatism that I was brought up on, those had dissipated to a large degree under Johnson, further dissipated under Sunak. The ECHR, the green agenda, net zero, whatever you want to say, I think bringing back Boris Johnson won't make the slightest bit of difference. In that Runcorn by-election, I know it's not a Tory seat. Let me tell you that I found this out today. If that was replicated in 4 years' time, the voting pattern there, Reform would have 472 seats, Labour would have 138, and Nigel Evans, I put this to you, your party would have 6 seats in Parliament.
Yeah.
Your party is in freefall. Boris Johnson is not the answer, is he?
No, and I'll tell you what I told the Chief Whip when Lee Anderson was suspended. It was Simon Hart then, Lord Hart as he is now, and I said to Simon, for goodness sake, lift the suspension, get Lee back in. We should have done a deal with Nigel Farage 2 years ago, but part of the problem is the left wing of the Conservative Party wouldn't touch him. They would have all threatening to leave the Tory party if we did that. If we had got Nigel Farage on board 2 years ago, then I think the situation would have been dramatically different. And a lot of those MPs who said, no, you can't touch Farage, well, a lot of them lost their seats. That's the reason why we're in the spot that we're in now. Kemi has got to be given time to bring forward her policies. And I told you again, Jeremy, that she hasn't got the luxury of time.
No.
She's been in power several months and we still haven't really worked out what Kemiism stands for. I know she's anti-woke and I know she wants to stop the boats and all that sort of stuff, and she's very patriotic, but I think she now needs to expedite the delivery of the policy. She has not got the luxury. We've got elections again next year for the Welsh and the Scottish parliaments. We'll get hammered if we do not give voters a reason to re-engage with the Conservative Party.
Nigel, very quickly, 3 things. Can Nigel Farage be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom?
Yes.
Second question, climbing Churchill's statue is now a crime. Shouldn't that have been a crime before?
Yes.
You see, he's earning his money now. But here's the one for you. Baby train drivers, applicants as young as 18, will be allowed to drive trains amid concerns over driver shortages. What job would you not let an 18-year-old do, Nigel Evans?
Heart surgery. There's lots that you wouldn't let 18-year-olds do. But the fact is, you got it right. There are such a thing as driverless trains. Yeah. You've got the DLR that are driverless. You've got the technology that is there. Why aren't they adapting or adopting the new technology that is there, ensuring that they wouldn't have a problem? I mean, that's what they ought to be doing. But of course, they're in hock to ASLEP and the train unions. What was the first thing that they did? They took billions of pensioners and they gave it to train drivers.
We love you, and we will join you next week at a mystery location as the Nigel Evans World Tour goes from Spain to Dubai. Where will he be next week? Nigel, we love you. Thank you for being on. 4:22. We're live across the UK. Talk is the home of free speech and common sense. Drive till 70344 499 1000. What do you want to talk about? Two-tier tax care. God, he's a nightmare, isn't he? Migrant accommodation, 15 billion in 10 years, whilst we're all skin. Bring back Boris. Bugger off. What job would you not let an 18-year-old do? Everything. Don't vote. Just, I don't know. What do you think? Let me know. We're coming back in 3.
The problem with the Tories is the moment they get a bad result, the first thing they think of doing is regicide. Like, let's get rid of the leader.
Yeah.
How many leaders have they had in the last 20 years?
507, apparently.
I don't... Well, they've all had a go at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem for the Tories is, look, I think Robert Jenrick has shown himself to be a very capable politician. He's actually been almost like the unofficial leader of the opposition. Well, I completely agree with that. Kemi has maybe not been quite what a lot of people thought she would have been when they voted her to become party leader.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
To talk about. Welcome back to Drive Time. Just before we get back to the show, right now the cardinals inside the conclave in the Sistine Chapel are taking their oath of secrecy. I'm just watching these pictures, right? I'm watching them all line up. They're all looking very serious. And I imagine thinking to themselves, how can I shaft that bloke behind me? I'm much better than him. Who do I tell that he's a complete nightmare? It's an extraordinary thing. And they'll go into this room, and it might be a week. You won't hear anything, and you'll see smoke coming out, and then there will be a new... Look at them all. Look at him. His act's not right. I don't want him to get the gig. I don't like him. Honestly, how much slagging will be going on in between that? But the secret ballot to elect the next Catholic leader of the, 1.4 billion people across the world takes place shortly, and we'll have all the news here on Talk as they line up. The next one, I think I'll be a better pope than him. Yeah, look at him, he's horrible, I don't like him. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. All this bring back Johnson, says Russ. If I had a bleeding plumber at my house who made a total mess and caused flooding, and then I got him back to do more work, my wife would think I was barking mad. So what's all this Tory stuff going on? Boris Johnson is yesterday's news. Kev's in Nottingham. That's brave. Jez, I can't find the words anymore to explain what an absolute delusional idiot Starmer is. Oh, I've lost that now. Oh, yeah. Wherever he goes, he starts a war. There's no doubt his dad was a tool maker because Keir Starmer is the biggest tool that has ever walked the earth. He's absolutely vile. I would not let, says Carolyn, an 18-year-old be in charge of government drug and alcohol policies. I think that's probably quite good. Jessie Ship? She says, I'm a waspy pensioner and an ex-army lady. I frankly realised that I'm stuffed. Max in Warwickshire says, we need a vote of no confidence in Keir Starmer. It doesn't work like that. Paul in Dorset, Jez, what job would you not let an 18-year-old do? Press the big red button. What, not? Do you remember Peter Kay's sketch where his grandmother had a red button, red light, pull it, goes through to Dougie? Paul, you're right, you wouldn't let an 18-year-old do that. Who's this? Glenn in Leicestershire, remember please, this is interesting. We let 18 and 19-year-olds fly Spitfires in World War II. They didn't do bad. That's an interesting point. That's the other side of the coin. 8722. Sally's just gone. Doesn't Nigel Evans remind you of John Craven? What, on Newsround or when he's out with the animals? I've no idea. Pete in Croydon. Jez, I wouldn't want an 18-year-old working with you because you are really, really horrible. As for Starmer, he's not tone deaf, Jeremy. He's doing this deliberately. What do you mean you wouldn't want an 18-year-old working? Am I not lovely, team? Complete silence from next door, Pete in Croydon. Maybe you're right. Grant Fleming. It's not just the Labour Party no one trusts anymore, Jez. It's any politician in any party. Even if there's someone who thinks might be trusted, they still turn to sound bites. There's no substance. How can you know from what they say what they'll ever do? Interesting. They said to Cambridge, a bit north. Tristan, you're on Talk Drive. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Oh, hello, Jeremy. How you doing?
I'm good. Couple of minutes. What you got?
Yeah, my question is, why would anybody want Boris Johnson back in control of the country? My first point would be he was partying all throughout the lockdown, and that's just a proven fact now. The other thing is the US official report came out not that long ago, which is very easy to find, that basically proves that all of the lockdowns were pointless. It says that masks did not work.
I don't want you to get angry with me. I'm going to stick up for Boris Johnson now, and Julia Hartley-Brewer will disagree, Mike might disagree, and everybody's got an opinion, right? Listen, Boris Johnson moved away from what I call core traditional Tory values, right? Net zero and all that. The pandemic, right, was a cluster on many levels, right? But I still maintain, and I've been slaughtered for saying this, that if you are 3 months into a job and a high-ranking official comes into your office and says you've got two choices, you can either screw the economy or kill 250,000 people. Whoever you are, you ain't going to get it right. That's my opinion. It's all well and good. Yeah. This government, right, this government wanted to lock down sooner and for longer. Remember that? True or false?
I absolutely agree with your point, Jeremy. My point is, though, that there were people who were speaking openly about this. So there were scientists who were speaking openly about this. Me and lots of other people also got shut down. A good friend of mine who was a funeral director got shut down for even remotely speaking about excess deaths. Many times. Lots of people I know, I believe, have had side effects from the vaccine.
So he's not the man to bring back?
He's definitely not the man to bring back. In fact, I would openly call him a liar. I would.
Do you think our current Prime Minister's a liar?
Absolutely. I think
Rishi Sunak was a liar?
All of them were liars. And I think that even I hate to say it, I am quite pro-reform. I would like to also point out the fact that Nigel Farage also did back down. He backs the original lockdowns. Nigel Farage.
Tristan, I'm not going to be rude or miserable. I've got to move on. I don't want to talk about lockdowns all afternoon, but we appreciate your call on Talk Drive 4:31. We are delighted to be joined by a lady who couldn't make it yesterday because she's very, very important. Isabelle Oakeshott, our international editor. Hello.
Hi, I think that caller was a bit rude about you saying that you're a horrible person or something.
Well, they said that no 18... I set a question... Well, Ryan did, because today we discovered... I always want to call you Izzy, and then I think you'll tell me off.
I like Izzy. That's
all right,
fine.
Izzy busy... Izzy Wizzy, let's get busy. Applicants as young as 18 will be allowed to drive bleeding trains amid concerns over driver shortages. The minimum age is to be dropped from 20. The Department of Transport has announced. It led me to... I don't want to get into an argument, driverless trains. You've got teenagers, I've got them as well. What job would you not let an 18-year-old do? The bloke wrote in and said not work with you because you're horrible. He's entitled to his opinion. What job would you not let your 18-year-old do?
The horrible thing about you is that you gave me the worst flu of my adult lifetime, and I don't think I'm ever going to quite be able to forget that. But other than that, you're absolutely...
Sorry, can we just rewind a little bit, because that could be open to a bit of a discussion. I gave you the flu. How did I do that?
So did, and I've even got the picture to prove it, the moment you gave me flu.
Sorry.
But anyway, we'll move on from that to the important question of what job wouldn't you let an 18-year-old do? Funnily enough, I would actually be okay with the right kind of 18-year-old driving a train as a hard-pressed commuter, someone that long-distance commuted for years and years and years and years. I would just be bloody grateful that there was a driver at all.
Well, I think it's another example of how we'll end up with driverless trains. Just embrace technology. But there are things that certain 18-year-olds shouldn't be allowed to do, like vote, in my humble opinion. That's just me being angry.
I think voting is fine. I mean, I've got a near 18-year-old and he's more than capable of knowing what party he wants to vote for and understanding all the issues. However, I would not let 18-year-olds be MPs. To the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been an 18-year-old MP, I think, ever. But there have been MPs in their early 20s, and generally it doesn't end well.
Well, I don't mean to be rude, but most MPs act like kids anyway. So maybe you should turn it completely on its head before we get serious and say that you can only... This will ruin Richard's life. You can only stand for Parliament if you're 16 to 21 or something. Can you imagine? It'd be really interesting, wouldn't it? Izzy, I want to talk to you about this nightmare Prime Minister. I mean, we talk about it every single day. The latest sort of nightmare to befall this country is you get to power, you start screwing people, it seems, but then your Chancellor, Richard III, stands up in October. They talk growth, and then they basically say to any small and medium business, I'm sorry, you obviously have a few quid, we're going to screw you, we're going to increase national insurance, which is going to make it doubly difficult for you to make a profit, what with energy prices going through the roof. So that's just what you're going to have to deal with, because we care about workers. Right, OK, fast forward. He's arranged a deal with the Indian government worth $5 billion deal, a trade deal. He says that will change so much for us and it will be great. But under the agreement, when you scratch the surface, tens of thousands of temporary Indian workers will be exempt from paying national insurance, making them cheaper to hire. And Indian businesses who will come here already set up here will also not have to have that hike. Now, respectfully, that is yet another example, is it not, of we're going to screw Britain and British workers and people who've been here all their lives, and do they not understand how utterly contemptible that is?
Well, it's very nice of you to be respectful about it. I'm not feeling respectful about it at all. This is completely and utterly insane.
Yeah.
I think the government has got no idea the extent of the floodgates that they're opening. They think it's only going to be a few thousand additional Indians coming to the UK, Indian workers coming to the UK. I put it to them that it's more likely to be at the very least tens of thousands, but much more likely to be in the hundreds of thousands in a very short period of time. And we're going to see all sorts of scams, aren't we? We're going to see fake companies setting up in Delhi saying that they're moving their workers to the UK, and over the workers come and they enjoy some kind of tax-free existence in some kind of token company in the UK, and meanwhile claim benefits. Now, I haven't looked at the small print, but to the best of my knowledge, all these Indians that are going to come over and be able to earn national insurance free they will still qualify for healthcare and all the other benefits that that national insurance is supposed to help
and
pay
the very
for.
things that you are saying and I am saying will be deemed as racist. And I wouldn't put it past this government to have made this decision because they feel that anybody criticising it can be labelled accordingly. That is not the... It's rubbish. That's not the point here. The point here is you're saying to... I didn't even want to say... You're saying to established workers here or established businesses here, we're going to screw you, but we're going to, like do with migrants, we're going to make every single person who doesn't live in this country and hasn't paid, my old phrase, the stamp, 4 years, we're going to make it easier for them to be better off than you. Barking!
I mean, this is so politically inept.
Yeah.
It begs belief. You know, as a Brexiteer, of course, I want to see trade deals, and successive prime ministers have been trying to thrash out a trade deal with India for years. Rishi Sunak, whose own parents are Indian and live in India and who married an Indian heiress, was desperate for a trade deal with India. You know, he is so strongly linked to India and proudly so. And he tried very hard to thrash out a deal. He would have loved that to have been part of his legacy. But even the daft Tories who betrayed this country on so much were not stupid enough to be ready to strike a trade deal at all costs, for example, at the cost of thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of extra Indian nationals coming to the UK. However allegedly temporary that may be. Don't listen to Keir Starmer when he tells us this is a 3-year thing. I mean, how many times do we hear every day of people that come over here, over to the UK on a temporary basis, and then they buy themselves a pet goldfish or have a child with somebody.
Get baptised in the Thames.
So just an absolute load of nonsense that this is temporary. And you know what? I simply can't believe the extent this plays into the hands of other parties. It's mad.
I agree, as does News Today. And we'll talk about Boris in a minute. Migrant accommodation, including hotels, is estimated to be going to cost the British taxpayer over 10 years, Isabelle, £15 billion. 15 billion quid. A tenth of that figure, 1.5 billion, was all that the government saved by taking away that winter fuel allowance from all those pensioners. Spending watchdogs have revealed the nightmare scenario that is unfolding. We have talked about immigration till the cows come home. We've talked about how the fact that there are so many people in this country who shouldn't be here are causing problems with public services that are already on their backsides. £15 billion. Instead of waving this, I've done a deal with India, and I blame Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak and Theresa May and all of them. Nobody has had the gumption, nobody has had the foresight or just the understanding. This migrant situation, the British people, they want that sorted, they want an end to net zero, and they want a government that goes, do you know, we understand it's tough, we're going to think and try and do our best for you. It's not racist, it's not anything, it's just a government serving its people, right?
Well, I keep thinking that Labour must realise how badly they're misreading the room. I mean, Keir Starmer can't even seem to read a room, never mind a whole country. I keep thinking they're going to wake up to this, as if last week's election results weren't enough of a wake-up call. And then they do something like this trade deal, and all that shiny announcement is going to be totally overshadowed because all anyone is going to talk about is the two-tier tax thing. And as for the other thing that you mentioned, I mean, it's just equally bonkers. 15 billion. We just don't have that kind of money, and it completely smashes Keir Starmer's own claim that he's going to smash the vile people smuggling gangs, which would mean we wouldn't need all this accommodation for asylum seekers. Clearly, no one's got any expectation that that is going to happen, and hundreds more people every week continue to flow across the channel.
Are you okay? Because you weren't able to join me yesterday. Can I punish you? That didn't sound right at all, did I? Can you speak to me after the break for a couple of more minutes? Is that all right, Izzy? Please say yes.
I love that. Come on, let's absolutely do that.
Izzy, you'll be busy in a minute. I didn't write him either. 3 minutes, coming back. Thanks.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jules back tomorrow from 10, Mike from 6 with Morning Glory. I'm just watching this Papal conclave. I was talking about this earlier. The cardinals lining up, taking an oath of secrecy. There has been quite a lot said about there could be a British Pope. Breaking news here from Jodie. There's a Scouse cardinal. Can you imagine? Hey, come on, you lot. Let's get into Peter Square and have a bit of... Can you imagine a Scouse Pope? Brilliant. Isabelle Oakeshott still with me. How are you?
That would be a great coup for us. I want a Scouse Pope. A British Pope would be incredible.
Can you imagine? Right, we're going to have a bit of... You can all just understand we need to have a bit of prayers on a Sunday after the match. Would it be red or... It'd have to be a red, wouldn't it?
Latin. I'd love to hear a Scouse speaking Latin. That'd be amazing.
Oh, my God. I'm going to get Jodie before the end of the show. I'm going to find a line of Latin and I'm going to record it and I'm going to play it out. Isabelle, I wanted to keep you on and thank you so much. I know how busy you are. There's this extraordinary story that's come out today, that the Tories can only defeat Nigel Farage's reform if it finds a way to bring back Boris Johnson, a new poll suggests. There's a plot to already oust Kemi Badenoch, surprisingly, but he apparently is still more popular than Jenrick and Badenoch. Now, I have to tell you, because I'm very straight, I voted reform and I spent many months before that election talking about Boris Johnson, and then it switched me on doing this job, that actually net zero, the green agenda, high taxation, not dealing with immigration, despite saying I'm going to drop it to 20,000, it's now nearly 1 million. The man failed, I think, to deliver traditional Tory values and policies, which is why many people like I moved to reform. He's not the bloody answer at all. In fact, somebody told me earlier, this is what I want to keep you on, it was Mike, if the Runcorn by-election voting pattern took place across the whole country, not that it can, but if it did, just in a weird way, Reform would have 430-odd seats, the Labour Party would have about 138, and the Tories would have 6, Isabelle Oakeshott, at the next election.
Well, I mean, no way is Boris Johnson the answer. If the Tory party or people within the Tory party thinks that that makes reform tremble, they're completely wrong. As you say, Boris Johnson failed to deliver on every single one of the key issues that has attracted Tory voters to reform. This is, after all, a guy who, when he was Mayor of London, wanted to have an amnesty for illegal immigrants. So, you know, his record on these things would just come back to haunt him each and every time. He's so damaged. I mean, I like Boris personally. I think he's a real character and so on and so forth. Great fun to go for a drink with or have dinner with or whatever, at a, you know, hang out with at a party. But he is not a man to run the country. He proved that, didn't he? The manner of his departure, it was all a complete and utter shambles. Sorry, but you can't revive from that. He has far too much baggage.
Interesting. Just a question about Nigel, because we haven't spoken since those elections last week. Pretty astonishing. 677 extra councillor seats, the control of 10 councils, 2 mayoral successes, including Andrea Jenkins, and also, of course, that win in Runcorn for Sarah Puchin. But I just want to ask you a question. Your reform, I voted for reform, but one of the criticisms, and I think it's a viable question to ask you, is that Nigel Farage, and not just because of Rupert Lowe or Ben Habib or other people, but lots of people are now saying, running these councils will be interesting. A1, it will show that reform are up to it or not up to it, fact. Do we believe, yes, that Nigel Farage could be the next Prime Minister? Yes. Do we believe that he could delegate? Is it within him as a human being to be in government and control a party and give out responsibility? Because the rumours are, of course, and always will be, it's him and it's his way and the highway. Richard, obviously, you or Richard, all that, people would disagree with that. But do you think that's a viable criticism of Farage, and do you think he can bury that going forward?
Well, I mean, people can adapt to extraordinary new opportunities, can't they? I mean, it's certainly reasonable to mention that he's never run anything on this scale before. I mean, even UKIP never got as big as Reform is now, with some 230,000 members and all these councillors. And it's simply impossible for one leader, however strong and energetic they are, to manage that kind of behemoth and to control every aspect of it. So put simply, he will have to delegate. And you mentioned Richard, my partner. Obviously, I'm biased, but Richard Tice, as the deputy leader, is absolutely pivotal to everything to do with the economic policy and the detail of that, which is, of course, the key relationship in government is between a prime minister and a chancellor. Pretty much anyone else is expendable. I mean, you don't want to lose your home secretary, but the relationship between Nigel and Richard is rock solid. And I think those two have complementary talents. No one could ever say that Richard Tice is not a team player.
No.
And so I think that this will be, if it happens, and we're miles off from this, it's possible reform could implode. I don't think it will. But, you know, I, of all people, know from observing politics how much can change in the space of a year, never mind 4. But if reform got into government, I have no doubt that there would be a highly functioning team led by Nigel and the best people that he's got around him.
I love having you on. I'm sorry to drag you over the break, and I appreciate so much your time. There's a thought. Richard Tice, Chancellor. I've seen the money clip. We love having you on, Izzy. Thank you very much. Isabelle Oakeshott Talks international editor. Peter Cardwell next on Drive.
Disgracefully, the government didn't mention in their statement in the House of Commons yesterday was anything to do with the movement of people. Yeah. And it turns out that Indian workers coming to work in the UK won't have to pay any national insurance on the employer, nor will the employer. So guess what? If an employer in the UK can suddenly employ an Indian worker coming over and save themselves 15% national insurance, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out what some employers are going to do.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Minutes to 5. I'm going to abuse my position. Peter Cardwell is with me. We have to say to my son Oliver, who has been really ill for about 4 days, and he's at home right now. Ollie, I love you, mate. I'll be back soon. He's not well.
Poor little guy. He's got chicken pox.
Well, no, we don't know that.
You don't know.
It
You think it might be.
No, thanks. Well, you've said that now. That's going to wind him up. Oh,
is it?
Jesus,
Is it going to wind him up?
No.
Should I not have said that?
No, it's fine.
Well,
Listen,
I hope he's better soon. I hope he's better soon. Because it's never fun being ill, especially when you're a child.
But he's done all right. He made me go to McDonald's 10 miles this morning to get him a vanilla milkshake.
It's all right. I wish someone would go to McDonald's to get me a vanilla milkshake. It would be great.
Yeah, there we go. Ollie, I love you. Be back soon. Peter Cardwell, who I just released off air, and the most extraordinary. You're writing a book.
Yes.
You've been commissioned and published to write a book about political animals. Now, I thought that would be big political people, but this is actually the animals.
Well, it is big political people because they're talking to me about their animals. I've got interviews with Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, Sue Gray, various people. Sue Gray.
What has she got? A pussy?
She's got. She was the mother of the 2 cats who were in the Cabinet Office.
Really? Let's talk about Boris, as you brought him up today. You and I used to argue about this. You were a Sunak man. You were desperate to work for Rishi Sunak at one point, and I was always at the issue. You're waiting for the call. I was extolling the virtues of Johnson, and I freely admit, by the time it got to the election, I realised that the things that I was brought up on, conservative values, Johnson hadn't adhered to, and net zero and the green agenda and all that sort of stuff. The Conservatives can only defeat Nigel Farage's reform if it finds a way to bring back BJ. A new poll suggests amid rumours of a plot already to oust Badenoch, apparently he's still more popular than her and January. This is where you are going to be amazed by what I'm going to say. Absolutely, fundamentally the wrong thing to do. No way is he coming back. And I actually don't think the Tories are going to recover for many, many years.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And also, a lot of the people around Boris Johnson are gone. You know, his big cheerleaders, people like Jake Berry, people like Nigel Evans, they're gone. They're out of Parliament. And I'm not sure of the 121 Conservative MPs there's any real Boris faction anymore. Also, I don't think he's necessarily interested in it. He's making a load of money around the world. He's got a book coming out in Shakespeare. He's got
a book. Peter's got a book.
Well, I won't compete with my book, let me tell you. But no, he's fine. He's done it. He certainly feels very aggrieved at how he was, in his view, stabbed in the back. But certainly, I think a return of Boris Johnson would. I mean, he's a very, very divisive figure.
Mike told me earlier that if the voting pattern in Runcorn was replicated, I know it's a northern constituency. Reform would win 400 seats and the Tories would have 6.
Yes.
6.
Yes, which is one more than the Reform have at the moment. But yes, it is. Look, it was a reform quick. It was massive. It was really interesting. I think, a lot of people are struggling to sort of take this in. I was talking to quite a few people in Westminster go, it's all a bit scary, it's all a bit different. We've known this is coming for months and months and months and months because people are absolutely fed up with the Tories, with Labour. It didn't come as a shock to me at all. I mean, I saw them doing better than I thought they would. I thought they might get 500. They got nearly 700. Good for reform. And they've got a new MP. They've got to...
Doesn't it prove that the British people's voice is being heard? Like today, this ridiculous deal that Keir Starmer's done with India, which is he's standing up saying, I've done a £5 billion tax deal, trade deal with India, and it's brilliant, all that. The truth of the matter is, what he's saying is to tens of thousands of temporary Indian workers, you can come into this country and pay no national insurance. He's saying to Indian businesses, you don't have to pay national insurance. That's how he encourages. But in October, Richard III, Rachel Thieves, basically said to any small and medium-sized British business, I'm going to screw you because we don't like success and you're going to pay more national insurance.
Well, I think if you're about to set up a business or you're someone who's thinking, will I take on someone else, you're probably not going to do that. And I was talking to a very senior business figure last night, actually, who was telling me that there are loads of... There's not a formal movement towards this, but there are loads of businesses that he knows that are... someone leaves and they don't replace them. They're maybe not taking on a new person. An apprentice comes to the end of their apprenticeship and they're not being taken on, whereas in previous years they would be. These are not by themselves huge things. They're a huge thing if you've got a small business, but overall the sum that it comes up to. And if you're a small business, you think, hold on a second, how am I meant to compete with an Indian business and when they have their people over here for up to 3 years, they don't pay national insurance?
But you see, that's the financial thing. What I'm talking about, and I'm with you, is that gut feeling about what are this government's or this country's priorities now? We're spending
are they on the side of the British people?
15 billion over 10 years on migrant hotels. We're favouring Indian businesses and Indian workers.
He's on the side of the Indians, he's on the side of the Ukrainians, he's on the side of the migrants. What about the British people?
Yeah.
And again, it comes back to the fundamental question.
And that's why reform works, Pete, isn't it? And for the people that jump up and go, that's racist, it's not racist.
No, it's not racist. No, what Nigel Farage says, look at how much Nigel Farage talks about things like fairness, right? It talks about things like you go out to work in the morning, your alarm clock goes off at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whatever. You go out to work, you're the person who should be rewarded for doing so. That is resonating with people. We're not just talking, look, immigration is the number one thing that people who voted Reform care about. That's fair enough. Somebody somewhere along the way is going to have to sort out immigration in this country because it cannot go on the way it's going on. But if you drill down into the other bits, the bits where other parties, if they started talking in the same way as Nigel Farage about fairness, saying, you go out to work, we'll give you a fair deal. Where is the reward for following the rules? I ask that question all the time. Where is the reward? If you are just ordinary Joe, just about managing, working hard, working hard.
No, but I'm completely with you. So why would I pay my taxes, not break the law, bring my kids up, act responsibly, go to work, never take anything off the state, to be knowing that actually I'm about 8th in the bleeding queue the whole time? If I stand, would you be my spad?
What, to be a Reform MP?
I didn't say I'd be a Reform MP, but if I stand,
surely Nigel Farage will put you in the House of Lords. You can bypass democracy.
That wasn't discussed at lunch the other day, but would you be my spad?
I think, do you know what? If you become a Secretary of State, Jeremy, it's a terrifying thought for, I don't know, families. You could certainly
contraception. The Minister of Contraception.
Minister for keeping the birth rate low.
Wow.
It would be an honour to work for you to work for me. Yeah.
What job should I have then? Secretary of State. What would you give me? Home Office?
What would I give you? I'd give you something like culture. Probably.
Why?
Because you don't have any. No, I don't know what I'd give you. I don't know what you'd be.
Leader of the House, mate. I'll get into all of them.
Deputy Prime Minister to Nigel, obviously. That would be good.
Chancellor and Deputy Prime Minister. Anyway, listen, you're not here tomorrow because I am.
Yes.
I can't tell you why, but I am here tomorrow. But you are here on Friday. And the book, when is the book out?
The 16th of September.
Oh, bless you. Good luck with that. He's a legend. We love him. Peter Cardwell, thank you for hanging around. He's here Friday with Drive, and then on Saturday at 10 o'clock, and Sunday at 10 o'clock, and next Thursday and next Friday, and for the next couple of months he'll be here. Anyway, you're soon, aren't you?
Yes, I'll be here.
We love Peter Cardwell. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Ollie, get better soon. I will see you after the news at 5, which is next. I'm off for a wee even. Bye.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is talk.
Welcome back, hour 2 of Tour Drive. We're across the UK, of course, on the home of free speech and common sense. On the screen, it will. Oh, by the way, the Cardinals, they've all done their oath. We're backing. Mike Graham's with me. I think one of the greatest things that could happen in the conclave right now is if they elected. There's a Scouse Cardinal.
Right.
Hey, come on now. Let's get all you Catholics together on a Sunday. We'll have a little bit of a prayer. Can you imagine?
It's a big Catholic city, Liverpool, of course,
It is.
isn't it?
It is.
I mean, they had
and
a
he'd
massive...
have to be red, wouldn't he? Not blue.
He would have to be, yeah. I believe so. And he'd also be a Celtic supporter, no doubt.
Jodie's just held up one finger to me. I think she means I've got to go call one. But we're going to get a line. I'd like Ryan to do this. I want to get a line of Latin.
Yes.
And I want Jodie to say some Latin.
Right.
As the sort of cardinal.
Yes.
Before 7 o'clock.
I used to know all that because I was an altar boy in my youth, as you may or may not know.
Sorry?
Yes, I was an altar boy. I used to do the Latin Mass. I'm not joking.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Right. And you survived?
Yeah, I survived. I was
So were you a
intact.
Catholic?
I was raised as a Catholic, and my father was actually a Protestant. My mum was a Catholic. That's why they moved to London, because in Scotland that was a mixed marriage that was very much frowned upon.
Yeah.
You know, very serious matter. So they moved to London.
So you migrated to London.
Right, so I'm thankful for that, because otherwise I'd have grown up in Glasgow. I could have been a very different person. And so I went to Catholic primary school. Went to Catholic primary school, Catholic grammar school. So, I used to do Christian studies. I failed it at O-level, unfortunately.
I got thrown out of religious studies during my O-level year for asking why one had to go to church and sit on a pew and do all this, why one couldn't pray in the bog.
Yes.
And he said I was being disrespectful.
Yeah, I kind of lost it when I used to go in on a Saturday to confession, where you would basically confess your sins, and then everything was all right again. And I thought, well,
I can get away with anything then.
and that wasn't the best message I could have been given at
I was going to
time.
say, at that moment, there was a mantra given to you, which I've obviously shared in our lives, which is you can oh, hold on a second, the Scout is Cardinal Vincent Nichols, the Archbishop of Westminster.
Vince to his mates.
All right, now Vince is here. Right, you lot, come on, now. Get in that conclave and vote for me, otherwise there'll be trouble. I'll get my mates up in Liverpool to get you sorted. Why is he the Archbishop of Westminster if he's a Scouse? Why isn't he the Archbishop?
Well, because they do move around, don't they? I suppose that's the top job in the Catholic Church in England.
He's the highest ranking. We've got oh, I'd love it. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Jodie, hey, get down here, Vinny. Jezza wants to interview you now. You're the Pope. Be brilliant, wouldn't it? Be great. I don't know what I'm doing. We've got a voice note. Big news of the day.
Go on.
Bring back BJ.
BJ?
Boris Johnson.
Well, they say that, but do they really want him back?
Carl.
I was a massive Boris Johnson fan, but I'm sorry, he let us down. I voted Brexit. He let in 1 million migrants come in every year. We had the lockdowns, which you understand. It was a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, so I don't particularly blame him for that. But I definitely blame him for what he's done to this country with regard to net zero, but most importantly, migration. And I just can't forgive him for that. I'll be voting Reform, and I'm a 30-year Tory voter.
That is exactly me, and you know this. I used to stick up for Johnson. I'm not getting involved in the pandemic. I had a call already about the mask. I will forever say, and I've said it to your face, I've said it to anybody, I think if you've waited all your life for a job and 3 months in somebody comes in your office and says, you've got a choice here, mate, and you've got 10 minutes to tell me you can kill 250,000 people or screw the economy. It's not great. But he let down traditional Tory voters, didn't he?
And he said when he was made Prime Minister in 2019, he came in, he said we're going to reduce net migration to 20,000 a year, and just as your caller Carl there said, he let everybody down on that because suddenly there was 1 million people coming in, and he was a great believer in that. A great believer in net zero, a big environmentalist. He was very keen on the whole green agenda, so that was the start of net zero, really, in the Tory party, which was a mistake, and similarly the immigration problem.
And it's interesting, you were telling me earlier when we were doing Plank about if you took, I was saying this to people earlier, if you took the Runcorn election, by-election result, and you replicated that across the UK, obviously it's the northern seat and the Tories wouldn't do traditionally, but let's in an ideal world just think about that. In 4 years' time, if the vote was the same, Reform would have 430 odd seats, Labour about 138, and the Tory party would be obliterated with
6 or 7 seats, which is hard to imagine. But that's kind of where they are. It's a sort of extinct moment for them, unless they can somehow turn it around. I don't think Boris Johnson's the guy to do that.
They also, whenever they come on here, apart from Nigel Evans, who's very, very straight up and says we messed up and we should have... I mean, he's actually very straight about it, but they'll say, yes, but we're the oldest established party. The Unionist Party, been around years, we'll be fine. I think that's gone.
That's a bit like saying people won't buy Chinese cars, isn't it? It's like saying, and I'm not likening the Reform Party to Chinese cars, but, you know, there was a time when you had pride in buying a British car. You know, you'd be hard-pressed now to find one. You know, unless you've got loads and loads of money, you can afford an Aston Martin or a Bentley. You know, almost everything else is a foreign car owned by foreign companies.
It's interesting, isn't it? And actually, if you step back like we do on this station repeatedly and think about it, you'd have to say reform is the real opposition now. But as I said to Isabelle just then, or Izzy, let's get busy, as I now call her. The truth is that they've never been given responsibility. They've now got 10 councillors, 2 mayoral candidates, a new MP, but people will be able to see if they are good to their word. They came out with that flag thing last week, which I agreed with, on the back of VE Day, and immediately everybody jumped up and said, what about the Ukrainian flag? Well, nothing against the Ukrainian flag, but that was about being proud to be British, but I need meat on the bone from reform. I'm being honest.
I mean, the people who are going to be critical of reform are going to be very critical. They're going to be like the sort of left-wing media who are anti-Trump in America. They're going to find lots of reasons to say that all reform are messing this up.
But that would incentivise me if I was reformed to keep going.
This is the bit they don't get. I mean, look at what happened in America. You know, they tried to prosecute Trump in 5 different states of the nation. They tried to turn him into a criminal. They tried to make out that he was, a traitor to his country. They tried to lock him up. You know, all sorts of things.
You told us for 2 years. I remember having conversations with you over several glasses of wine, and you said he'll win, and I used to go, no, he won't, and he absolutely obliterated.
And there
them.
were you can find loads of pundits who don't like to talk about it now because they all said he wouldn't, and they were all behind Kamala Harris, and she was going to be the great new hope, and everything was going to be different. Well, no, because people, guess what, don't like being told that they're racist bigots when they're not. They don't like being told that they shouldn't actually be proud of their country when they are. You know, they want to be able to actually walk down the street and not be robbed by somebody who's only just arrived in the country 5 minutes ago. You know, that's what people want.
And
that's
it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because those basic things get labelled. We were doing on Planet, we were talking about that Lucy Powell who came out with that dog whistle comment when Tim Montgomery talked about the grooming gangs, the rape gangs. Like, with absolutely no understanding of how much that screwed so many people's lives and how powerfully annoying that is to so many people. Gutting, right? We seem to have politicians, and we have this good discussion the whole time. It's all about focus group. It's all about how you think it's going to look. Nothing from the gut. And nobody, MG, right, who's got the balls to go, I don't care if that's unpopular. I don't care if it gets slagged in the media. I don't care if somebody creates a legal challenge. A bit like Trump, right? That is important. That's what we want to do. Don't feel it.
Yeah,
don't
right, exactly. But also it's partly because the 2 major parties have lost touch with the electorate. They don't know what ordinary people think. They don't know what they want. They don't understand why they feel the way they do. For years, don't forget, the BBC and others would say, oh, immigration doesn't even come in the top 5 of concerns that people have got. They worry about, you know, the cost of living. They worry about the cost of energy. They worry about the safety of their children, blah, blah, blah. No. Immigration, the #1 problem in this country, and it has been
because
for
of the
4 or
impact
5
that
years.
it has on everything else.
Exactly. But
crime,
but they've not seen it. They haven't seen it coming, and now they've missed the boat. And guess what? The driver of the boat is Nigel Farage, and the boat's going that way.
It's interesting as well. We were talking about Dame Andrea Jenkins, who won for Reform the mayoral job in Lincolnshire, and there was an interview with Sky, right? And the way they talked to her, you watch it and you go, do you know what? It's so condescending, but forget that you're being a condescending journalist. She got all those votes. You've just alienated all those people because your head is up your backside.
Because you don't like reform because you think they're all racists. And that was Labour's line. You know, and right up until the actual election day, they were putting up posters, you know, don't vote for racists. They were putting up a social media post saying, you know, don't let the right wing win. We've stopped them before. We can stop them again, you know, harking back to the days of Oswald Mosley. And all of these comparisons are completely wrong and pretty insulting, actually.
I agree.
And Keir Starmer was so useless, he didn't even go to Runcorn because I bet you they knew if he went, they'd actually get an even bigger majority of reform because people hate the guy.
Absolutely.
They just hate him.
Breaking news here. Ladbrokes to Brennan. Cardinal Vincent Nichols is into 33-1 to be the next Pope.
Can he do each way?
You can do each way. Where would he come in the top?
I don't know.
I've got this picture about the conclave, right?
Yeah.
They're all very respectful. Ryan loves it. All walking up and swear. They're being really bitchy to each other. Don't vote for him, he's a dick.
Well, it's
don't like him. That's how it works.
Well, you'd have this vision, wouldn't you? And as a Catholic, I can say this, right, because people would accuse me of being anti-Catholic, but I'm not. You know, you get this vision of sort of Monty Python-esque rooms where they're all, you know, there's women hanging around, there's a couple of cigars being smoked, you know, there's a bottle of whiskey over there, there's the guy necking a bottle of Jack Daniels. Yeah, who do you think should be the next Pope, man, you know? That's the kind of thing I want to see.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. But yeah, so there you are. Cardinal Vincent Nichols, the Archbishop of Westminster, is the scout who's into 33-1. We'll keep you updated here on Talk Drive. You know what you said about reform, and Listen, the people I know and the people I hang out with all feel exactly the same about this country. I mean, today, the big news story, you covered it on Breakfast, two-tier tax now.
Yeah.
You have Richard III, Rachel Thieves in October, saying to any sort of small or medium business, I don't like your success, I'm going to screw you, I'm going to get your money, I'm going to care about workers and all that sort of stuff. And we've spoken, you and I, on both shows, and to work to companies who are not able to survive now. With the NI increases, with energy problems, a nightmare. And yet he's waving this piece of paper, Chamberlain-esque, going, I've made a $5 billion trade deal with India, which is basically going to say that tens of thousands of temporary Indian workers can come to this country and not pay any national insurance. That's going to flood the... I don't care what anybody says. And it says to Indian businesses, you're not going to either, but I'm still going to screw the British businesses. It doesn't work, man.
No,
it's
it really
insane.
doesn't. And he's either completely and utterly incapable of seeing the wood for the trees. I mean, people say the old, Morgan McSweeney, as we refer to him, the pirate on the high seas of Labour.
Morgan.
This guy's meant to be a genius. But if he's the guy driving all this and to giving advice to Starmer, he is very far from being a genius.
Well, I'm not into conspiracy theories, but I think Morgan McSweeney is allowing Keir Starmer to drive his boat right into a wall because I think he wants West Streeting in 10 Downing Street by a mile. Because some of the... I mean, the view of this, right? I talked about Lucy Powell saying dog whistle, right? He's refused an independent inquiry, Starmer.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about understanding the vibe?
And he's never said anything about what she said either. He's never come out and said she made a mistake or she was wrong or...
Probably because he agrees.
Well, he does agree. He said something very similar in January.
Did he?
And his entire cabinet believe that people who want an investigation into this are racist, and that's obviously their line.
And I'm going to say this on Drive, and maybe I'll get into trouble. Mike says we say it all the time. The only reason the Labour Party won't give you an independent national inquiry into those child rape gangs is because they're concerned about losing the Muslim vote in those constituencies. Totally. That's a fact. That's not racist
They're terrified.
at all.
No.
And I've nothing against Indian businesses, but what I'm sitting here saying is, why wouldn't you help British business?
Yeah, right. Why wouldn't you, as somebody said to me today on the show, why wouldn't you give young people the opportunity to get a first job and have no national insurance to pay? Why can't you do that? Instead, you're going to give it to a load of people from India, who probably don't need it and probably won't necessarily want to come to this country unless you give them an incentive. Why can't you give our own people an incentive?
And how many fake businesses will be set up and people will come to this country and stay?
Loads of them. Do you remember the story from, I think it was the Midlands a few weeks ago, where it was skilled workers being sponsored to come to the country, and a kebab shop had sponsored 850 skilled workers, supposedly migrants, to come to this country, all legal, all visaed up, and all supposedly with a right to stay here.
I would love to have an opportunity. Hold on, Cardinal Vincent Nichols, Archbishop of Westminster, the Scousers now into 28-1 to be the next Pope. There's a massive gamble online.
There's a run going. You've obviously started something.
There's a massive gamble emanating from up there in Liverpool now. He's 28-1 and tumbling in his odds. I would love to be able to speak to one of those politicians and not shout or scream, but just go, do you understand in your ivory tower out there? These people are not racist, they're not misogynistic, they're not far right. They're very frustrated that their lives are being viewed as less important than so many other people.
It's not fair. At the end of the day, it's not fair. And that's what Donald Trump said. You know, why should we have to put up with these countries sending us their goods? They don't buy any American goods. And in fact, if you try and sell American goods to these countries like Australia, like China, you know, they put a massive tariff on. Why should we be allowing them to completely destroy our own economy? Which is what we've allowed them to do as well, you know, because their stuff is cheaper than the stuff that we make. No, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to give them tariffs, and we're going to make sure that stuff is manufactured in America. And that's a great thing.
It's really interesting. We're both 60-ish, and I never thought we would get to a point where, not the will of the people, but the vibe is that the British people have an opinion. And right now, that needs to be listened to, because I don't think that any politician or any party is going to be successful unless they manage to grab the feeling out there. This is not just a bunch of far-right people speaking rubbish. This is a genuine fact.
This is genuine British people who have literally just had enough. And with every week that passes, they've had more than enough. And with every week that passes, you know, there's another by-election coming up in Scotland.
When's that?
June the 5th, I think it is.
Has Jimmy Cranky given up a seat?
In a place called Hamilton. I'm not quite sure. It's where Winnie Ewing won the first seat for the SNP.
Right.
It's south of Glasgow. It's a very working class area. Reform have got a pretty good chance of winning that. You know, if they start doing that, Wow. You know, they've got the Wales elections coming up. They could take Wales completely.
Well,
tomorrow.
the leader of Labour in Wales, Baroness Morgan, is it?
Yeah.
She said yesterday,
Yes.
I don't like Keir Starmer's policies,
Yeah.
it?
No, that's right.
It's just a show of accents, isn't it?
It's amazing. But they've got the momentum. You know, they've got... And again, everybody said, you know, Nigel Farage has never won anything. He'll never win a seat. That was before the last election. And then, maybe he might win his own seat. And then they won 5 seats. And they keep getting it wrong. And they don't realise why they're getting it wrong. But they're getting it wrong because they don't understand.
I don't think they want to understand. I think the mainstream media, it's their worst nightmare, isn't it?
They don't know what to do.
You can pick between Winston Churchill and train drivers as the 2 final stories. What do you want to start with?
I think train drivers is good.
This is an extraordinary thing, but there's a side note here. Applicants as young as 18 will be allowed to drive trains amid concern over driver shortages. The minimum age to take on the role at the moment is 20. It's going to be lowered to 18. The Department for Transport announced they've got rid of the thief. Rail services are frequently disrupted because several operators rely on drivers voluntarily working extra shifts to run the timetable. Now, I did have a guy on saying 18-year-olds flew Spitfires in the Second World War. I take that point, but we thought we'd throw out, because driverless trains to me are the answer, because they're never on bloody time anyway. What job, and you've got teenage boys, would you not let an 18-year-old do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly in the case of one of them, nothing that would involve doing anything before midday. You know, if you have to actually be at your desk and in order to run, say, the air traffic control system, you know, definitely not one for him.
For one of your sons, no.
No, because he wouldn't get up in time.
What happens to a kid from 16 to 18? Why do they need to sleep for 18 hours
a day?
I don't know. What is it?
I can't explain it. I don't seem to remember doing that because I had a job from a very early age. You know, whenever I was not at school, I was working. It was one of the reasons I gave up being an altar boy, actually, was because I got a job in this local bakery. And so I used to work there Saturday and Sunday. I started at 8 o'clock every morning, finished around about 3 because they did most of the work in the morning. And I did that every school holidays, every weekend from the age of 14 until actually I left university. So
my
7 or 8 years.
I'm quite outspoken. My lot have all had to have jobs. Our Henry's just got a job in a restaurant where he announces order 41.
That's good.
But then you've got to do that. You've got to graft, man.
Of course
but
you have.
18 to drive a train?
I don't think so. I think it is a bit young. I'm like you. I think time for driverless trains. But also, how are they having trouble getting train drivers? They're paid about 75,000 quid a year.
4-day week.
They have the most remarkable conditions where not only do they have a 4-day week, but they quite often only have to drive one train. You know, because they're not allowed to drive for more than 4 hours. So if you're on the, say, the East Coast main line, you take the train up from London to Edinburgh, you don't get all the way to Edinburgh. You stop somewhere like Leeds and you get off.
Which is brave.
And then you wait, well, now they're in the Premier League, I suppose they might get a few more bits of money going in. But you know, then you wait there and you have a rest for half an hour or 45 minutes. And then you might get on another train back, but you might not be driving it.
No.
You just get a train back to London.
And they sit first class.
And that's your day. You're done.
Now listen, can you hear anything? Can you hear the output?
No, I can't.
Oh, that's a bit of a... Right, so we're going to put the mic down. So first of all, apparently, I've been breaking news here. Cardinal Vincent Nichols is the Scouse Archbishop of Westminster. There's a big gamble going on that old Vinny could be the next Pope. It's gone from 33s to 28s to 25. Now, we've had loads of people saying, Kyle sounds like Lily Savage.
Yes, there is some of that.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is Lily Savage.
14 barley wines and a pint of cider. Not bad, is it, really, for a well-brought-up Sally Army girl?
14 wines. I remember Lily Savage. This is a genuinely true story. When I went for my first audition to work on ITV, he was sat in the corner of the studio at a piano. Absolutely, by the way, legend.
Right.
Just the most down to earth.
Yeah.
But I said, how was your Christmas? He said, how was my Christmas? He said, I had 2 pints of sherry on Christmas Eve and I woke up in a skip on New Year's Eve. I had no idea what was going on. It's all out the whole time. Anyway, that is genuinely true. Vincent Nichols, Archbishop of Westminster, there's a big gamble going on. The other thing is Churchill, just to finish before we send you home.
Yeah, what's going on with him?
The government will make it a crime to climb on Winston Churchill's statue in Parliament Square. Offenders could face up to 3 months in prison and a grand fine for desecrating the monument to Britain's wartime leader. But our very own Prime Minister took his bust and his picture out at number 10, didn't he?
He did indeed. And quite frankly, that's just performative nonsense because he's trying to do this kind of, you know, let's try and out-reform reform. Look at how popular we are because now we're going to say that Churchill's a great bloke. It's not that easy, Mr. Starmer, I'm afraid. It's not that simple.
But that's the point.
It's already illegal to climb on statues. You can already arrest people for doing it. It's just that the woke police won't do it. especially if you're a
So
Palestinian
now he's
supporter.
so shallow,
Yeah.
so lacking in any real theory, and it's all about ideology, that he thinks that by saying, you'll go to prison if you desecrate Winston Churchill, but you don't like Winston Churchill because you and your party think he was a racist.
And now, of course, he thinks every person who voted Reform last Thursday will go, oh, that's all right then, we're going to vote Labour because you're the party of patriotic Britain. What's a load of old rubbish?
How did he become Prime Minister?
I really don't know, because I told you where I found out that he wasn't really even a decent barrister. You know, he's been hoodwinking everybody over the years, because I spoke to Victoria Atkins, who's a Tory MP, who was a Tory minister. She said, I used to work for the CPS. I was the person that Keir Starmer hired in order to present cases in court. He never did it. He just sat behind a desk and handed out...
Boris Johnson, who we've talked about earlier, and there was much wrong with him, got absolutely slaughtered when he stood up in the House of Parliament and he looked at Keir Starmer and he went, why are we listening to you when you did not even prosecute Jimmy Savile? That was an absolutely nailed-on truthful thing to say.
Exactly right.
What's for tea tonight? Then you sent me a picture of that chicken Milanese.
The chicken Milanese was really good. It's one of the best ones I've made, actually.
Yeah.
I think I'm having a bit of chicken paprika tonight. I made it last night. Because I'm here for another half an hour or so.
Are you?
Got to do a podcast with Kev.
Oh, that'd be nice. Be nice and happy.
Yeah, I'll try and cheer him up.
Yeah, you know what to say. We've had that conversation. The legend is back, by the way, tomorrow. I say everybody this. Listen, if you have not listened to Morning Glory, and I have been around a long, long time, best breakfast show by a mile, Migrant of the Day and Michael Graham. What have you got?
Well, what I was going to say was today we had a great interview. We had the first Reform Party female MP, Sarah Pochin, who was in, and she came in and she said, oh my God, I can't believe I've actually finally met you. I wake up to you every single morning. It's the greatest show ever. I'm your biggest fan. She's going to be great.
Did she come into the studio?
She was here.
You are become a political sex symbol.
It's true.
Sarah Pochin wakes up with you every morning.
Yeah, every morning.
And actually, on a serious note, let's just for a minute think about that. You know, the Today programme or whatever. The newest MP voted in a pure Labour era because people believe what Reform is saying. Wakes up with you every morning.
Yeah.
Good man. Nothing that you can tell us about tomorrow?
I have no idea what's on. I mean, it is obviously VE Day proper,
it is,
so we will
absolutely.
be talking about an awful lot of the great stories that we've had all week. Hugh Andre is going to be coming in,
brilliant,
who's a veteran, of course. He runs a thing called We Served, which is all about getting veterans back into the jobs market, helping them out if they're struggling. You know, we're going to be doing lots of that.
Good man. Listen, he is back tomorrow morning from 6. The legend that is Mike Graham. I'm literally going to go and have a wee. I'll see you in 3.
worries us in Reform UK is that we've got 4.5 years left of this Labour government. What damage are they going to do? I mean, we clearly are on the move. We're on the march, and the country is ready for us. I've got no doubt about that.
No question.
This country is going turquoise. We've already seen that with the council elections and this historic win in Runcorn and Helsby. But the point is, how much time have we got to sort of save the country? And that sounds, I know that sounds so dramatic. It's so real.
It is.
And what's happened now with this Indian deal?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Talk, the home of free speech and common sense, to the drive show that proves that we can be talking about serious things, but we can also have a laugh. There's breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you've heard the news. They're voting for a new pope. Why am I talking like that? They're voting for a new pope. It's underway in the Sistine Chapel. Hordes of cardinals waiting. The breaking news is there's a cardinal called Vincent Nichols. He's a Scouser. He's the Archbishop of Canterbury. We're pushing for a Scouser to be the next pope, and there's a massive gamble going on. 33s to 25s, 20 to 1. We could have a Scouse pope. Jodie's got him well excited here. And alongside that, people are saying, why have you gone into a crap Lily Savage? Now, if you think this sounds like Lily Savage, tell me who sounds more like Lily Savage, me or Lily Savage?
14 barley wines and a pint of cider. Not bad, is it, really, for a well-brought-up Sally Army girl?
Brilliant. Legend he was. 5:28. We're live across the UK. Let's talk about one of the other news stories that seems to be, you've not got lost today amongst the Indian trade deal, but this is a fact, ladies and gentlemen. Asylum accommodation, including hotels, will cost us, the British taxpayer, £15 billion over the next 10 years. Now, bear in mind that to screw all the pensioners and not allow them to have their heating allowance in the winter saved the government £1.5 billion. 10 times more that to house people who shouldn't be here. Stephen Wolfe, migration expert and former MEP, how are you?
Hey, don't cast problems about that. I'm a Mancunian and I'm speaking better in Scouse than you are.
Wait a minute, what's happened? Look at you. You look very smart and intelligent today. Have you been in court? What's going on, man? Have a look.
Oh no, political machinations, my friend. Political machinations.
I can tell you've got to that age that I've got, where you have to have the glasses on the end of something because you're going to lose them, mate. Welcome to the show. We're rushing today. Loads going on, but Stephen, I mean, that is a staggering amount of money, and I think this is, and I think Mike's right, I think migration will be central to everybody the next election, because when you look at our public services, when you look at what's happening, and then you throw out 15 billion quid, people are at the end of their tether, Stephen.
Well, all I can say is that when I was doing this initial research, and I've had the numbers about Clear Springs and Mercer with the big, kind of beneficiaries of the government contracts that I looked at from 2019, I did not once for a minute expect it to get up to 15 billion. My own estimates were between 8 and 10 billion. That's big enough, that's bad enough. But when the National Audit Office has come out and said that we're spending £15 billion on accommodating asylum seekers and migrants, and that excludes, this is really important, that excludes the cost of what our councils are paying for their accommodation when they get outside of the system as a failed asylum seeker, or they've been given right to remain, which I think can double that, no doubt now. We can see how this is a drain on our economy, destroying our communities, and is no longer an issue that any politician of any political party can ignore. You have to stop it. It can't afford this anymore.
And it's interesting because you'll know, because we speak frequently, that those local elections last week gave Reform, a party that talks about immigration, and we know your history with Reform and other people's history, but suddenly there, whether it's Reform or something else, there seems to be amongst British people an understanding or a belief that it's actually now okay to say these people are coming to our country, not from war-torn countries. They're not bringing their wives and kids. They're disappearing into society. But more than that, they're coming here because we're as soft as whatever, and we seem to wipe their backsides. But that's one thing. But here's the point for your average man and woman and family. We're now, I keep saying it and I make no apology, sack me. We're 8th in the queue, and we've never broken the law. We've gone to work and paid our taxes and educated our kids. We've never had a bleeding handout. Not in our lives have we had a handout, and yet I'm 8th in the queue. So why would I live my life so correctly? Why would I do everything that I've always been taught and brought up to do when people who haven't are better off than me, Stephen? That's the point.
And that's exactly the point. This is why you're getting social breakdown. This is why in Glasgow they're saying we can't take any more because it's creating social cohesion. This is why the military are saying that we can't get people to come and join the fight. And if we did go to war with China, Iran or Russia, no white boy is going to actually stand up and fight for this country, because all they do is concern themselves and saying, you're looking after migrants coming into here. They're getting ahead of my grandmother in the hospitals and care at doctors. All of this is now transforming the way that we look to our country. We no longer believe our politicians look after us. No one cares for us. And we're sick and tired of being put to that back of the queue. And we're reacting in the only way we can, by withdrawing ourselves from society, voting for parties that we know have no manifesto or policies out there, but they are not the same parties that have been in power doing this.
Help me out. There will be people who would listen to this or watch this and hear much discussion about, say, migration. And what you've just said, or what I've just said, that's just, I mean, the BBC and Sky, the way they interviewed, they allowed, Lucy Powell, they interviewed Dame Andrea Jenkins when she won the mayoral candidacy in Lincolnshire, whether you agree with her or not, right? The questioning was appalling. You said somebody had a South African accent, you're racist, you're racist, you're racist. These people don't seem to understand that there are millions of people in this country. I'm not racist, you're not racist, but we have a right to say that seemingly Beryl in Rochdale, who's lived here 70 years and is now struggling, is being treated worse than a man or a woman who's arrived on a boat. What do you say to the people who go, Stephen Wolfe, that's racist, that's unfair, that's wrong?
I think they're just a snob, unfortunately. That's just only one word. There's two historical elements about our British nation, going back to King Harold and all the way back to the earlier kings of Alfred. Is that we were initially dominated by the idea of snobbery, that we built a class-cultured system in place, and if you're comfortable, well off, not being able to be worried about all the actions that the working class or the lower middle class in our country have to suffer, or even now, as I would say, the middle class of this country are now beginning to suffer.
Yes.
And as long as I'm all right and it's impacting me, you therefore are the racist, the xenophobe, and I can say what I like about it. On the contrary side of that is I could turn around. Over the last week, I had a really troublesome illness, a virus that nearly took me, and I was treated by people of doctors and consultants in here who managed to ensure that I'm here today, sat in front of you. Most people in our country will look at those doctors and say, thank goodness you're here, and thankfully you're here. Because we're not racist. We're not about your colour or creed. We recognise when you're adding value to our nation, but we're not looking at them and adding value into our nation at all. Many of them will not, some will. We welcome those that do, pay their taxes, agree with our culture, just as those doctors and nurses were looking after me in the hospital this week, and there are others that we don't. That is not racist, that's recognition of human nature, a bond of commonality that we join with each other, and a recognition of fairness. That's what this nation has always been about.
Do you believe, and I'm so glad you're better, mate, and we appreciate you coming on, do you believe this shift in, I think, a large number of British people feeling that they're being treated unfairly, do you think that this is a shift that will continue all the way to, in 4 years' time, a different government? I'm not saying reform, I'm just giving you an example. Do you think that this vibe, this buzz, whatever you want to call it, will continue to grow?
Oh, absolutely, because there is only one direction in terms of the way that immigration is coming into this country, both legal and illegal. As I've been pointing out, if you look at Europol, if you look at the security services in Europe, they're telling us that we're getting 200 to 300,000 coming across all the various routes, the 5 or 6 routes into Europe. that means that we're getting more and more coming over. Secondly, we have evidence now, clear evidence, hence the reason why the Conservative Party issued their deportation bill that looked at one particular area of people coming here for students and work visas and now claiming asylum too. And we have both of those. And then we have legal migration, where people are beginning to break the law and the rules related to that too. So we're getting huge numbers coming into this country. That won't stop. The flow is coming across. And as that continues, the pressure on housing, where you have Serco in this report we've just talked about, going to housing and landlords across the country saying, give us your housing for 5 years and we'll pay everything. Well, suddenly that's going to increase the prices for ordinary working people.
Yeah.
How will they afford a house? The impact on us now is so obvious, so daily, that this will not stop. And whether it's reform, and everybody's looking at them because they've not been tried, they've not been tested, they've not failed yet, or whether it's another authentic, patriotic party that believes in ensuring that the rules are the rules, the law is the law, and the people of Britain comes first, they will vote for them. But this will not stop.
Stephen, I really appreciate being on, mate. I'm glad you're better. I love the glasses. You're looking very intelligent. And most of all, I love the Scouse accent. Stephen Wolfe, migration expert, former MEP, thank you very much indeed. 22 minutes to 6 o'clock. How about this? Scaredy, scaredy cat, Starmer. Honestly, I am going to start swearing in a minute. Gutless Starmer's done it again. Breaking news. Pat McFadden, one of his, closest allies, will face Labour backbenchers tonight. It's the first chance for the parliamentary party to have a collective moan at their government since the tough local elections. That's where the leader goes into the House of Commons, meets the parliamentary party. But Keir Starmer has decided not to face it himself. He's sending Pat McFadden. He doesn't look like a henchman. He looks like a, I don't know. One Labour MP quipped that Starmer is not willing to address the Parliamentary Labour Party because the PM tends to avoid them when things get awkward. This man is gutless. He's out of his depth. He lacks conviction. We'll do more on that. Plus, breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. We're back there. You might have seen the footage. They are voting for a new cardinal in the Sistine Chapel. The reason I keep going into Lily Savage is Cardinal Vincent Nichols. He's a Scouse Cardinal. The Archbishop of Westminster's a Scouser. There he is on screen. All right, Vinny. There's a major gamble on Vinny. Vinny's from 33 to 1 down to 20 to 1 to be the next Pope. He could wake up tomorrow morning in the Vatican. We're back at 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is...
In a talk, the management are circling. They're trying to get me to stop doing this accent. I'm not doing it. I'm doing it. I'm continuing it. Breaking news from the Sistine Chapel. They are voting in the conclave for a new Pope. Phil Dave, the new Pope could be a Scouser. It could be Cardinal Vincent Nichols. He's in from 33 to 1. He's at 18 to 1 now. Come on, Vinny, we're all behind you, kid. There he is on screen. He's thinking, this will be a great gig. I'll tell you what. I've never been in a house like the Vatican where I've come from, in Kirby. I'm telling you now, I've got a great chance to win. 0344, Heighton even. 0344 419 1000, text to 87222. To the phone lines. Cornelius is in Liverpool. How are you, son?
All right there, Jeremy, lads. How's it going there, kid?
All right, Cornelius, how are you, son? All right, all right.
Listen, Jeremy, with a name like Cornelius Pybus, lad, I've got to be the next pope, you know what I mean? I mean, you can't have it, can you?
Why are you not in the Sistine Chapel, Cornelius VIII? You'd be brilliant, man.
Exactly. The 88. Listen, number one, lad. Number one. There ain't no 88. There's only number one, lad.
If you were the next pope, would you let Trent Alexander-Arnold go to Real Madrid?
Mate, I'd pay his fare, lad. I'd pay his fare, get rid of him, you know what I mean? If he doesn't want to be there, he doesn't want to be there. You know, simple as that, really, isn't it? Get rid of him, pass him on, and then I'll deal with him when we get him to Italy, you know what I mean?
Are you a red or a blue?
I'm a red, lad, a red, all the way, you know.
What do you want to say as the next pope? What do you want to say to our Jodie, who's an Everton fan, works on show?
I just had to say, and I say, Jodie girl, like, you know what I mean? I mean, you're barking up the wrong tree, aren't you? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, you know, chalk and cheese, isn't it? Like, you know, cream rises to the top. You know, you're down the bottom, girl. You need to get rid of it. Get the monkey off your back. You know, move forward, move on.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen. I have to cut him off because he's been called up by the Sistine voice. That's Cornelius from Liverpool. Could be the next pope. This story is gathering traction. Cardinal Vincent Nichols, Archbishop of Westminster, could be the first ever Scouse pope. I think it's a bit wrong for him to say that Jodie's barking up at the wrong tree. I mean, she spent a lot of time under the trees, but we'll go into that in more detail later. Let's go to York. Simon, you're on Talk Drive. How are you?
All right there, Jeremy, all right?
That's the worst. That's the worst accent I've ever heard, man.
Yeah, well, I'm from York, not up north, Yorkshireman, straight talking Yorkshireman.
Right, hello, Simon in York. God, it's all gone wrong. Right, you've got a couple of minutes, my old son. What do you want to say?
Oh, Jeremy, what's happening to this country? I mean, what are Labour doing now? I mean, I'm a businessman in York. I run an hospitality business. And this is the first year we won't make a profit. We're not going to be paying corporation tax this year. And now with this Indian deal where you're going to get a load of Indians coming across, nothing wrong with the guys and girls who are coming across from India. However, they're not going to be paying NI. They're not going to be paying tax. Where are they going to live? What accommodation have they got? You know,
I'm really pleased to take your call because one of the things that I'm not saying people fell for it was only 34% of the British public that voted for Labour. One of the things that Labour talked about repeatedly in the election campaign was it's about growth, it's about jobs for normal working class people. All they did in that budget was screw any small and medium-sized business because in their puerile little minds they think that anybody that's got a business is rich or successful. You are the living embodiment of that. High energy costs and now this ridiculous NI increase by our government whilst cutting it for Indian businesses leaves you wondering why you're even bothering, right?
Right, I don't know why I got out of bed. Listen, Jeremy, I did 27 years in the British Army, from private soldier to commissioned officer, 8 operational tours, set up a business, employed 24 staff. And I'm thinking, why the hell am I getting out of bed now when our elderly people have got £300 taken off them fuel allowance and they're spending £1,000 a year on illegal immigrants, putting them in a hotel. I walked around York yesterday, and in York, I saw about 20 people on doorsteps begging. There was no illegal immigrant begging. They're all English people begging. There's a guy in a village along the street here who lives in a car. What is happening to this country?
Completely with you. And when you think of that service you gave to the British Army and you see what's happened to this country, and
ridiculous.
It just embarrasses you, doesn't it?
It embarrasses me so much. I mean, these Labour supporters want to wake up and smell the coffee and just realise what's happening to this country. This country in 50 years' time will not be Britain. The Englishman, the Scotsman, the Welshman and the Irishman are getting diluted, and they won't be around in 50 years. They will be the
Simon, I think we... Listen, I would never want to take it too far. I think we have to understand that maybe I have a different opinion. I always think that this country should be involved with different people from different countries. But my point is simply this, and I must move on. When it gets to the point that people who have lived here all their lives and have paid their taxes and paid their dues now feel like they're at the back of the queue, that's when we've got a problem. Very quickly, I just want to do this if I can, Ryan. Quickly, James in London, you've got 1 minute, pal. How you doing?
All right, do you want some chicken, Jeremy?
Hello, mate. It's James in London. For people wondering why everybody's suddenly doing a Lily Savage impression, I'll tell you why. They're voting for the new Pope in the conclave. And Cardinal Vincent Nichols, Vinny to his mates, is the Scouser. He's the Archbishop of Westminster. And since I started speaking about this, he's on screen. There's been a hell of a gamble. He's from 33s into 18 to 1. We could have a Scouse Pope going, hey, Jodie, get to church, you bad girl. Right, James, what's happening?
What's happening, Jeremy? Jeremy, I'm just a bit annoyed with this £5 billion trade deal with the Indian government. I just want to ask Keir Starmer and the rest of the lunatics who think this is such a great idea, who's going to be paying the medical bills of all these Indian migrants when they come over? Because they're not paying NI and they'll be allowed to use the NHS. So us mugs here are getting double bubbled again.
But that's the point, and that is where, on a serious note for a minute, it is not racist, it is not outrageous, and it is not conspiratorial to say if you've got a public service, in this instance the NHS, which is struggling to look after people who pay for it, fact, why are you going to make it available to people who don't pay for it? Because it will make that creek even further. James, thank you for your call. James in London. 12 minutes to 6. We've got sport on the way with the legend, it says here, that is Sam Ellard, who's dating us with his company. I'm going to go and have a quick bet on Cardinal Vinny Nichols, the Archbishop of Westminster. A Scouser could be the next Pope for the Catholic majority. What a lovely thought. Back in 3. I definitely am going for the way.
Worries us in Reform UK is that we've got 4.5 years left of this Labour government. What damage are they going to do? I mean, we clearly are on the move. We're on the march, and the country is ready for us. I've got no doubt about that.
No question.
This country is going turquoise. We've already seen that with the council elections and this historic win in Runcorn and Helsby. But the point is, how much time have we got to sort of save the country? And that sounds, I know that sounds so dramatic. It's so real.
It is.
And what's happened now with this Indian deal?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Peter Cardwell's just come up to me and gone, what's that accent about? Let me tell you, Pete, it's the big breaking news story. The Cardinals are in the Sistine Chapel voting for the next Pope, and the brilliant news is Cardinal Vinnie Nichols, the Archbishop of Westminster. We could have our first ever Scouse Pope. Jodie's hugely excited, and there's a massive gamble on. Talking of gambles, talking of sport, because that's the sort of gamble, push the button, Ames.
Sport Summary on Talk.
Wednesday night, the legend that is Sam Ellard. Can you do a Scouse accent? Because I know your mother and she comes from Liverpool. Come on, lad.
My mum is born and bred Liverpool.
Strong in the arm and thick in the head. Come on, scratch on. Come on, what?
One thing I would say, though, honestly...
Just do it.
I'm doing the Scouse accent. Honestly, massive game tonight in the Champions League. Oh, it's so bad, isn't it? It's not even, honestly.
Jodie's just gone like this.
Oh, no, honestly. Why don't you just... Yeah, I've had a shape, by the way. Thanks for noticing.
What's happened to your hair? Who cut it? The council? What's happened?
Well, no, I've gone short on top. But it's... Why are you laughing,
Have a look, Flower. It's terrible. Can we talk about sport? I don't know what's happened now. I've turned into pure Lily Savage.
Yeah, nice shirt, by the way.
Jim in Cambridge says, I'm dying here, Jez. Well, he needs to do something about that. I don't know what to say.
That's not ideal, is it?
I'm dying here, Jez. Yeah. Well, don't. I need the listeners I can get. Thank you.
I like your shirt today.
What?
It looks even more crisp than normal today.
What did you say, Ryan? Oh, there's a voice knob with no name. Push the button, then.
Jez, stop doing the Scouse accent. I'd rather listen to James O'Brien. That's saying something. Please stop doing the accents.
Absolutely not. And if you want to listen to that bloke, then fine.
Is he the guy, James O'Brien?
I've no idea. I think that was the boss. I actually think that was the boss just then on the voice note.
Who? Denny?
Well, I don't know. I think that might have been the boss.
What? Your boss? The big boss?
Just telling... But yes.
OK, well then let's do some sport then,
I feel the complete opposite. No, I'm joking.
Okay.
Sport. On a serious note, that was the greatest game of football I think many people have ever seen last night. Champions League semi-final, finished 7-6 into Barcelona.
So 3-3 from the first leg.
Yep.
Inter go 2-0 up. Barca bring it back to 2-2. Then Barca in the 87th minute go 3-2 up.
Yep.
Inter then equalised in the 93rd minute.
Yeah, so
it goes to extra time.
Yeah.
And then Inter win it in extra time.
Ever seen a better game?
I'm going to say no. And do you know what it was? It wasn't just the one good game. It was the two good games. Because you had the 3-3 from the first leg. Potentially certainly the best Champions League tie I've ever seen over 210 minutes. Almost a bit cliche, but sad that one team had to lose. I wanted Barca to get through. Something about this Barcelona team that I really like. The teenage sensation, Lamine Yamal. You got Rafinha, who a few years ago was relegated from the Premier League with Leeds, and now is one of the best players in the world. They've got such a good midfield. But with Inter Milan, an incredible story where over the last 3 or 4 years, year in, year out, they end up selling their best players to other teams. Yet their manager, Simone Inzaghi, got them to 2 Champions League finals down with 3 years. They've won trophies in their own country. So fair play to Inter Milan. An incredible game. You know in football now, Jeremy, so much is on tactics. And in this country, every player feels like it's being... Do you know what? It was a throwback where it was basically end-to-end football, and one of those games you did not want to end. Inter go through to the Champions League final, and 7-6 against Barca.
And tonight, Piers texted me. So Piers has been on the train to...
Piers Morgan text you?
Yeah.
What? Like,
why?
On your Piers Morgan?
This is one of my best friends. What are you talking about?
That's quite a good name drop, Piers Morgan.
It's not meant to be a name drop. He's just on the way to the Parc des Princes to see Arsenal.
I follow him on Twitter.
PSG. Do you?
I got him on Twitter.
I just... Right,
you see his interview the other day with...
Kanye West?
Yeah.
It was 2 minutes. Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah, pretty cool, right?
Right, anyway, just crack on.
Sorry.
So he's on his way to the Parc des Princes. What
He's
I was
actually
going to say
arrived.
was...
You're wrong. He's arrived.
Yeah.
I know that. I saw it on X.
Arsenal PSG, second leg. PSG 1-0 up. Parc des Princes. PSG, to me, have looked the best team in the Champions League in Europe this season, although last night's game was amazing. Have Arsenal, Piers will tell you yes, have Arsenal got what it takes to overturn it in the cauldron of the Parc des Princes tonight? I say no.
Yeah, I think PSG go through this evening. I think it was one of those. For Arsenal to get through, I think they had to go to PSG with a lead. PSG over the last couple of months have looked so good.
Yep.
The front three is probably the best front three in the world with Doué, Kvaratskhelia and Dembele. The midfield three, they complement each other so well. Vitinha, João Neves. I just think, Jez, away from home, I think PSG will have a little bit too much quality tonight.
But let's not forget, they absolutely slaughtered Real Madrid 5-1 in the quarter-final. and beat them away from home. Anything is possible. And I know I sound like one of those terrible sports reporters, you know, like you work with, but first goal's really important tonight.
No, I think that's
1-1's completely different. 2-0 mounted.
You know what?
to
If
climb.
Arsenal go there and get an early goal, it changes the whole. It was a bit like when PSG went to Arsenal. PSG scored after a couple of minutes, and it felt like the whole game just changed like that because the atmosphere went flat, and PSG were able just to go in there and settle in. So you're absolutely spot on. If Arsenal can get an early goal, not that you need my seal of approval on life. Things will feel a little bit nervy where PSG score early and Arsenal go 2 down. And the thing is, Arsenal will then, as the game go on, have to start pushing bodies forward, and PSG have got pace, and a bit more pace on the counter attack. Arsenal will find it so difficult. So I'd love Arsenal to go through tonight, Jez, but it's a tough ask. Tall order.
I'm not bothered that the Indian Test captain Rohit Sharma is retired for Test cricket. Why am I bothered about that?
India coming to England this summer for 5 Test matches.
There's a joke in that, but I'm not going to do it, and Ryan knows exactly what I'm going to say.
Go on.
No, I'm not going to do it.
Well, I don't.
Well, just crack on about cricket. There's a big story in the paper today about Indian businesses coming to Britain, as well as the Indian Test team.
There we go.
No NI for them either, no?
I'll keep this for 30 seconds then, because you're not interested. Rohit Sharma, one of the biggest legend, 38 years of age, played 67 Test matches, has been the captain since 2022.
It's about to be dropped, so he's retired.
He's one of those ones where it's like, I'm going to retire.
It's a bit like when you do a job like this, when you know the day of reckoning, you know, the Grim Reaper's coming, you know, with wrists to reckon. Yeah. That's when you go,
worm, though,
I'm moving.
I'm hearing rumours. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on air.
No, you're not allowed to talk about that. That's very rude. Don't talk about your worm on air. By the way, can we just ask you one other thing?
It's about F1, no.
Premier League. No, Premier League. I want to know.
What do you
I
want
want you now to name the 5 qualifiers for the Champions League next season. Obviously, Arsenal and obviously Liverpool. Manchester City, who are 2 from 3?
So City are going to come 3rd.
Yeah.
Newcastle are going to come 4th.
I so want Forest to knock Chelsea out.
I'm going to go...
They've got Leicester, Forest, and Chelsea have got...
Chelsea's next game, they go to Newcastle and they go to Forest last day. I just think Forest are falling away, so I'm going to go City, Newcastle, Villa and Forest.
Not Chelsea?
No, Chelsea and Villa. And also, by the way, you said 5, by the way. I'm going to throw one more in there. You're forgetting there's going to be a 6th team.
Where are you going on Saturday? Because I'm going to watch the game at St James's Park.
Oh, I'm not going to St James's Park on Saturday.
I am.
Oh, because you're a Newcastle fan?
Well, massive. Yeah.
But also it's on Sunday, not Saturday, just to let you know.
Oh God, no, that's right. Yeah, but it's a plane up and down. It's fine. But I'm going.
So sorry, can I go back? Because I made an absolute meal out of that. City are going to come 3rd. Newcastle are going to come 4th. And then I'm going to go for Chelsea, I'm going to go Chelsea and Villa. So Forest are going to miss out. Apologies.
Fantastic.
I made an absolute meal out of that.
Jeremy, keep the butchered Scouse accent up, please. If it only means that I don't have to suffer your shambolic attempt at a Geordie accent for just one evening of my life, it's a welcome break. By the way, can you tell us all when you're planning your next wee, please, in Scouse? Cheers, war kid. Martin in Whitley Bay. I don't need a wee now, mate. I've done one. Breaking news alongside the sport, ladies and gentlemen, that the conclave is under... Well, it's happening. The Pope is going to be elected soon inside the Sistine Chapel, and we have breaking news that Cardinal Vincent Nichols, a Scouse, could be the next Pope. He's the Archbishop of Westminster, and he sounds like Lily Savage. What?
Sorry, I've confused myself here. City are going to come 3rd, Newcastle 4th, Chelsea 5th, which means Villa and Forest will both miss out. Sorry, I've had a bit of a mare there. That was poor from me. I apologise to your listeners.
You don't need to apologise.
Because your worm's going down with me.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And can I just say, and I don't want you to say this the wrong way, I think you're very professional, I think you're great.
That wasn't professional.
Your haircut looks like it's been painted on. It is not a good look at all. It's somebody who's butchered your hair almost as much as I butchered a Scouse accent. I'm sorry, I'm your biggest fan, but stay on the radio. Don't put that on screen. Terrible. Needs to grow.
That is absolutely... Is that why the cameras aren't on me? They're on the Pope vote, secret ballot.
They're on a pigeon above the Sistine Chapel.
Sorry, what?
03444 1000. Text to 87222. News of 6 is next.
Is that right?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hour 3, final hour of Talk Drive for Wednesday. We're live across the UK. As ever, if you want to be on the show, I'm trying not to sound like Lily Savage. 0344 499 1000 is our telephone number. Our Jodie's taking the calls. You can get us via text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Been talking about that two-tier tax row. Your Labour, you decide that we're going to screw British businesses with high NI rates, but we're going to say we've got a nice trade deal worth $5 billion with India. They can come here, as can casual Indian workers, and not pay any NI at all. It's not outrageous to say that. To me, that is fundamentally unfair to British workers and British companies. Love your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. We find out today that migration accommodation is going to cost 3 times more than it was ever estimated. Ladies and gentlemen, £15 billion, 15 billion quid over the next 10 years, which is a tenth of that figure, is what they saved, the government, by screwing over the pensioners. That is extraordinary. There's been a story out today as well about bringing back Boris Johnson. Not one person has phoned or texted saying that they think it would be a good idea. We've also talked about how apparently there are so few train drivers that applicants as young as 18 will be OK to be able to try and achieve that job and be a train driver. So we asked a question very simply. What would you not allow an 18-year-old to do? 87222. Start your message with the word talk. And how can you have missed the breaking news that in the conclave in the Sistine Chapel in Rome, the cardinals have gathered. It's all very, very serious. They're all lined up and swore on the Bible. Who will be the next pope? We'll know. Crowds gathering, smoke will come out the top, the rest is history. And then our Jodie pointed out that there was in fact a Scouse cardinal. It's called Vincent Nichols, or Vinny to his mates, St Heighton. It's the Archbishop of Westminster, and there's been a massive gamble on our Vin. Vin could be the next pope, can you imagine that? Oh my God, he'd sell off all the gold. I'm only joking, he'd probably nick it. 0344 499. Why am I doing that accent now? 0344 499 Donna in Brum. All right, Jez, calm down, don't forget. Don't forget, lad, every time a new pope gets elected, an English team wins the Champions League. Very interesting point. Hello to Louise in Wigan. Jez, you're killing me with your accent. It's hilarious. In fact, it's much better than the normal Scouse accent. Oh, there you go. Hi, JK. We discovered that Rachel Thieves, the Richard III lookalike, was not really an economist, and now we discovered that Three-Gear Keir was a crap lawyer. Can it get any worse? Well, it can, actually, because Jonathan Reynolds, who's the business secretary and who runs British Steel, said he was a solicitor. And he lied. Simon Dinage says, you don't only sound like Lily Savage, you really look like him as well. Thanks very much. Ruth, my grandson started a bus driver training course at 18. He loves his job, his passengers love him, he's 21 now, and a relief manager. Give them responsibility, they'll encompass it. Fair play to you. This is anonymous. Why do you keep doing a crap Lily Savage impression? Because it's getting me through the day. Deb's in Huddersfield. Jezza, why do you go into Lily Savage mode when you do a Scouse accent? I have no idea, it just happens. I have no idea at all. Andy's... I beg your pardon? What did you... Oh, the seagulls moved. Oh, hold on, there could be something happening in Rome. The seagull's flown off. Maybe it's got a hot... Maybe it was on top of the bit with the smoke's coming out. Maybe it's got a hot bum. I'm only joking. Dave, no, I've done that one. Andy's in Morecambe. Jeremy, do you think the Scouse Pope will make them all... No, I'm not reading that. And this one says, this is brilliant, Alan. Alan in Bristol says, do you think that Nigel could convince Boris Johnson to join Reform? I don't think Boris Johnson... No, I don't think Reform want Boris Johnson, but what do I know? 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Let's head to Newport. Can Matthew do a Scouse accent? Go.
No.
God. Oh, hello. All right, Mr. Misery, what's happening?
Well, I managed to put the phone back on my ear now. So take a breath, Jeremy, take a breath. You can have a heart attack. Anyway.
No, I'm not going to have a heart attack. I'm absolutely fine. I'm living my life and living the moment. What would you like to say?
You're living the dream.
Well, I'm not living the dream, am I? I'm just getting on with my life.
I just want to say, although I think the optics are bad on this Indian sort of deal, we do have it with 50 other countries, or however many other countries, a similar setup. They are paying national insurance in their own country. Our people there won't be paying national insurance to them. They're still paying tax, and they will have to pay to use the NHS. That's all.
How will they pay to help me out, because I would be ignorant to this. How are for people just tuning in? There's an agreement being announced today, a $5 billion trade deal between England and India. It's caused uproar because under the agreement, tens of thousands of temporary Indian workers will be exempt from paying national insurance, making them cheaper to hire. How do you know they're going to pay for the NHS? How does that work then?
Well, people who come here and live here as a migrant pay for the NHS. They don't get it free.
Who told you that?
Well, that's the law.
Because I'm completely shocked, because we know that in migrant hotels, a GP who can't see 7 million people in England sees them the day after.
Wait, yeah, but they're two different people, aren't they? You're comparing apples with pears. I mean, let's not sort of say it's an untruth. If you are here, if you go on holiday, you take your holiday insurance, you've got your EHIC or whatever it is called now. That's be on holiday. If you come here as an illegal migrant and you're trying to get in to be legal, but if you're here working from another country, you pay to use the NHS.
What, by paying your taxes?
No, there's actually a fee, but that's another thing. They will actually be paying taxes at 20 and 40% as it goes up, which is far greater than your non-DOMs or your business leaders or your Amazons or people like yourselves, with greatest respect.
Oh, I see. You're one of them. You're one of those people that thinks that anybody who's successful should pay all the taxes to wipe the backsides of everybody else, yeah?
No, absolutely not.
Well, you just said you're like them. What do you mean by that?
No, or like yourselves.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you are a person, I'd imagine, if he's wise, pays an accountant to pay as little tax as you can. I worked for 40 years, and I couldn't avoid pay as you earn. So that's all it is. That is the system that we're in. It can be gamed. You game it. I game it as much as I can, but I can't get out of it because when I'm employed, I pay 40% on my earnings.
Do you understand then, putting it in a different way, do you understand the uproar that this causes, because it is another example, how do I put this, of... And this isn't the rantings of one or two people. This is a massive, massive feeling in this country that what we're saying to people like yourself, who have always paid your stamp and paid your tax, whatever the percentage, whatever's happened, that you are now further in the back of the queue than people who haven't, hear me out, paid an nth of what you've paid, but are getting treated seemingly even better. Before you poo-poo that and say, oh, that's just the non-DOMs, I'm talking about millions of ordinary people who are feeling like second-class citizens. Do you understand that?
Yeah, but are you talking about the Indian deal now?
I'm talking about a general feeling. This is another example in my mind.
Well, it's another example of people either wanting to skew what is there. I don't actually agree with it, okay? This is what but you've got to put it in its real terms, and that is there's an agreement we have with other countries. They'll be paying national insurance in their country. Our people who go there will be paying national insurance in our country.
People that go there? How many English people? We're not going to send 20,000 people to India to work in businesses, are we?
I didn't say we were, but that is the reciprocal agreement, and it's been signed. Now, I'm not saying I agree with it. What I'm saying is you've got to tell. Well, let's put it this way: you've got to tell. I can't say lies. You've not got to tell lies. You've got to tell the truth. And the truth is, in theory, I'm not saying they would, they're meant to pay for their NHS. Now, that is how it is. That's all I wanted to ring in to say.
Mark in Norwich says that technically you're right, but in reality you're wrong. In practice, migrants never pay. The NHS treats them and the debt ends up being written off by the government.
Well, hang on. I just said what my thing was, and you just said I'm right.
No, that's Mark in Norwich saying that. So
well, he said technically I'm right, so I am right. All I'm trying to say is that it is a deal that in theory is going to bring us some wealth. I don't agree with it personally, and I didn't actually know that we have this deal, which must have been set up by Conservatives and Labour parties in the past, with other countries, because it is just a copy of that almost, I'm told.
Interesting. Matt, thank you very much indeed. You're a good man. Thanks for being on. 6:10, live across the UK. Sheila's in Cairn, that's in Wiltshire. Here. Are you channeling the spirit of Derek Acora tonight? I've no idea. Yes, bring back Boris. I think he should join Reform. Great show. I'm laughing that much. Says Jacqueline in Bournemouth. More so than the last guy. Mark in Coventry. Bringing Boris back would be great. It would totally wipe out the Conservatives and not split the right-wing vote, leaving Reform to storm to victory in the next election. Dan's in Halifax. Jez, thank you for making me spit my coffee out in laughter at your Scouse accent. Funniest thing ever. Great. Graham's in Bushy. That, of course, if you're a regular to the show, is where I was conceived. I would not let an 18-year-old Peter Cardwell's style guru. Although they couldn't be any worse than Cardi B actually is. 0344 499 1000. We say a very good evening to a man who, well, the last time we worked together, we were both very well behaved. Peter Blexley, how are you, dear?
I'm very well, thank you.
Few challenges for you, kid. Can you do a Scouse accent?
Like that previous caller, Matthew, no.
Why? Come on, get with the spirit. They're voting for a new... Have you not been listening? They are waiting outside the Vatican. They're getting ready. It's an amazing picture, by the way. You've got to picture this sort of chimney where the smoke comes out and there's two seagulls sat there having a poo. It's quite funny. Anyway, that we found out, Pete, that there's a Scouse cardinal, Vincent Nichols, who's the Archbishop of Westminster, and he could be the first Scouse pope. And there's a massive gamble underway. What do you make of that, son?
I've spent the last half hour of my life listening to your Scouse accents. And I commend you for your efforts, if not the end product. But no, I'm not very good at accents, unfortunately, apart from speaking the one that I've spoken all my life.
Hold on, so don't go anywhere, Blexley, because I'm not letting you away with that. David, on the next Pope, go.
All right, Jezza. It's Vince here. I'm going to be Pope in 5, 4, 3, 2... Scouser!
He needs help. Pete, seriously, I just had a discussion with that last caller about this Indian trade deal. You've always got lots of opinions on lots of things. I hope you're happy to talk about lots of different things. I'm sure you will be. What do you make of a trade deal with India that says that Indian relief workers, emergency workers, can come here and pay no NI on the back of a budget that basically said to any small and medium business, we're going to screw you for more NI and make it more difficult for you to make a profit?
In regards to the argument that Matthew made about these people that come from India paying for any NHS services they receive, yes, as one of your messengers said, he is right in theory, but it's absolutely a fact that the NHS do not pursue millions upon millions upon millions of outstanding charges that should be paid by foreign nationals when they're in the country. So in that regard, I suspect the debt will just get greater. It's actually a real core problem with the NHS because, understandably, if somebody is rushed into A&E and they're having a heart attack, the NHS will treat them before asking whether they've got any insurance or such like.
But the question to ask people like my last caller, and I kicked myself, I should have said it to him, when he said that is not afforded to Britons or people from other countries going to other countries. We would not be able to get... If you go to America, you'd be screwed financially, if you will. You get the bill.
You've got to get your travel insurance, you've got to get your G-HIT card, and travel insurance, of course, is not cheap. So in that regard, it would appear that the playing field is not entirely level.
We wanted to get you on because there's one or two again, stories today that make you think, what is this government like? What is happening to our society? A big story about Winston Churchill. Now, I know exactly what you're going to say because I can write down what you're going to say because I love you that much. The government have decided that they're going to make it a crime to climb on Winston Churchill's statue in Parliament Square. Offenders, Pete, could end up with 3 months in prison and a £1,000 fine for desecrating the monument to Britain's wartime leader. The Churchill statue is not officially classified as one of the UK's war memorials, but Home Secretary Yvette Cooper plans to add it to the list of statues and monuments which will become then an offence to climb. That will include the Cenotaph in Whitehall, the Royal Artillery Memorial in Hyde Park and many other famous structures around Britain commemorating the service of the armed forces in the Second World War. Now, forgive me, do you think this is a moment whereby the Labour Party has woken up to the importance of these things, or do you think that this is yet another ridiculous attempt by this bunch of idiots in power to, we've been trounced by reform, so we better do something like show people that we care? Because I thought he removed the picture of Churchill from 10 Downing Street, Starmer, didn't he?
It was Thatcher, I think, that he removed, but he might well have removed Churchill. I wouldn't put anything beyond him. Yeah, this is part of their new crime and policing bill, which is winding its way through Parliament as we speak. Yes, of course, it's rather ironic that it's a bit of populist politics by a party that's always accusing everybody else of being populist. Yeah, they're currying favour at the time. This statue which is a thing of beauty. I'm sure millions of people have seen it. Anybody who hasn't, I urge you to come to London and go to Parliament Square, stand in front of that statue and just ponder a moment and look at the brilliant statue of that wonderful man. It really is something to behold. And yet, would you believe it, Bretons over the years have defaced it with paint. Once, notably, somebody put turf on the head of him and the such like. Some people have been arrested, charged and convicted. One man, notably, was charged at trial and was acquitted, rather bizarrely. But any further protection that can be afforded to the wonderful statue of the great man, yeah, it should happen.
There are people in our country now who would say that Winston Churchill is a racist. I would say to the younger generation, in the calmest terms I can think, you wouldn't be where you are today with the freedoms and the liberty and everything that you lot don't even understand you've got if it hadn't been for what that man did, Pete.
Yeah, well, of course, this is the generation that shouts, "I know my rights," when knowing very little about their responsibilities. And I would urge any of these people, if they have a spare hour, to go online and read the speeches of Winston Churchill. You can find them there. They date back to the beginning of the 20th century, and he wrote prolifically almost up to the time of his death. There is a lot of wisdom to be learned by people. And this urges me to say, I think it's ludicrous that the Second World War and indeed the First World War are not routinely part of the history curriculum in primary schools and secondary schools.
Yeah.
I think if children were taught this, it might encourage them to have a greater sense of pride in this country.
Do you know what? We were doing this when we came in on Tuesday or Monday even with the VE Day celebrations. I am so with you. There is so much... We seem to, you know, you and I talk about it the whole time, we seem to become apologists. We apologise for everything that Britain apparently got wrong. We're denounced as the people that created slavery. Actually, we went across the world when we realised the mistakes of slavery and eradicated it. We've never got the credit that we deserve. I would love, Pete, nothing more than our schools and our generation to understand just an nth of the sacrifices and the moral courage so many people took to put these entitled young people in the position they are today. I've always felt that massively.
Yes, with all the rights that they scream about and their sincere lack of understanding their responsibilities, which really, really grieves and irritates me almost on a daily basis when I see young, disrespectful people with their feet on the seats of trains, but I do enough posting of that on social media.
Now, we need to ask you about trains because there's another breaking news story today. Applicants as young as 18 will be allowed to drive trains amid concerns over driver shortages. The Department of Transport has announced that rail services, really, are frequently disrupted because several operators rely on drivers voluntarily working at extra shifts. So the story goes, we're now going to allow 18-year-olds to drive trains. So I'm railing against this, excuse the pun, see what I did there, and I'm saying this is another example, try and nod sagely, another example of why we should have driverless trains, because they might be on time. But a couple of people said, hold on, Jez, Second World War 18-year-olds flew Spitfires. So, and that's true. What would you not let an 18-year-old do, Peter Blexley? What would you not let an 18-year-old do?
Vote Labour. But I come from the school of thought that if you're old enough, you're good enough. I know the train driver recruitment process is very, very strict, as it should be.
Yep.
And there's a huge amount of psychometric testing goes on to wheedle out people that would be unsuitable for the role. So I certainly think if you're young enough, you're talented enough, and let's face it, train drivers make a lot of sacrifices in terms of on their days off. They're not allowed to drink, for example, because they're working the following day. I know, I'm keeping some sense of perspective here. But yeah, if you're good enough and you're dedicated enough and you're going to go and do it, then be a public servant.
Breaking news, Pete. The Israeli embassy, we'd love your response. This is just in. The Israeli embassy was the target of a terror plot linked to Iran. The Times has learnt a group of Iranian men are suspected of planning an atrocity at the embassy in Kensington in West London. Counter-terrorism officers supported by the military swooped in to make arrests at the weekend, fearing that an attack was imminent. The Israeli embassy was the target of a terror plot linked to Iran. Peter Blexley.
Yes, well, we know that people remain in custody following those arrests at the weekend. the counter-terrorism police did seek to detain these people for longer than they would normally be allowed. Those investigations are ongoing. People may have seen images of people being detained at the weekend, their hands being sealed in plastic bags. And the urgency of that operation tells me that there was some sort of imminent threat. We will have to wait and see how the investigation pans out and see if charges are going to be brought anytime soon.
Good man, 6:22. Final one from you. Always a pleasure to have you on. There was this appalling story over the weekend. Lucy Powell is the leader of the House of Commons, who was in a debate with Tim Montgomery on BBC Radio 4, and sorry, I just spat there. And he brought up the rape gangs in the north, in Rotherham, and how he felt that it was a disgrace that the current Labour government has not only refused an independent national inquiry, but is now rowing back on local inquiries, and was talking about the victims. And Lucy Powell said, oh, we're going back to that dog whistle story again. You're dragging that one out. Roundly and quite rightly criticised for such inappropriate language, but not a word from Starmer. But Number 10 today saying that the grooming gang scandal is being weaponised by the right. It's unbelievable.
What Lucy Powell said was disgusting. And if this Prime Minister had any spine whatsoever, he would have sacked her at the earliest possible opportunity. But, of course, he won't, because, and what's coming out of Downing Street today shows that the mask hasn't slipped on this government with regards to these rape gangs. The mask has fallen away. They do not want a statutory public inquiry where people are compelled to give evidence, because it would expose their protection of block vote communities who they don't want to upset and who they prioritise above the kidnap, rape of young white girls. And shame on them.
Couldn't agree more, Pete. Really good. Love the... have we got the old British tie on? Can we lift it up? Is that the Union Jack tie? Look at that.
It's the only tie I'm wearing this week, my Union flag tie.
Very smart. Smart as carrots. The legend that is Peter Blexley, thank you very much indeed. Despite being a QPR fan, he's a good man. Still no news on the next Pope. It's a great image live on the television. All you get, right, is you get this sort of chimney in the Vatican with a seagull sat next to it. We await the white smoke. Latest odds, Cardinal Vincent Nichols, the Scouse Westminster Cardinal, has a chance. He's down to 16-1 to be the next Pope. This is Talk Drive.
And they've been shown up to be wrong. And I think that people are very unwilling to admit that they're wrong and find it quite hard to row back sometimes, even though in this instance they've got the perfect excuse. You know, we made a mistake. We and everyone else misinterpreted the law. But now we've had clarification on it. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. A woman is born female. A man is born male. It's very easy to separate on those bases.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back almost 6:30. We're live across the UK. As ever, if you want to be on the next half an hour, delighted to take your calls. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Jez, I see it's going to be illegal to climb on Churchill's statue. Now he's got a new sense of patriotism. Do you think that Starmer's character is going to put Churchill's and Thatcher's portraits back in the wall of number 10? Not a chance. Posturing. John in Carmarthen. Hello to Michelle in Swanage. Nice there. My daughter-in-law is here legally. While she was on visas, every time she applied for a new visa, she had to pay an NHS surcharge. Cost her about 10 grand, including visa costs. However, she said, I do not think this lot will have to pay like that, which is wrong. Or didn't I wrong? She said they won't have to pay like this. What is wrong? Gary in Cumbria says, like you, I thought Boris was great, but he let us down on Brexit by accepting such an agreement whereby the UK gave more to the EU than we should have. Another thing, as a truck driver, even during driver shortages, the age limit for an Arctic stayed at 21. 18-year-olds can drive up to 7.5 tonnes. So will there be a restriction on the types of trains? I've no idea. I'm not very big on trains. But good point. Stuart in Persia. Cheers. The fact that the Tories are even thinking about Boris is all the evidence we need that they aren't really interested in changing to address their failings, but would rather just pull out any sort of trick to try and regain power. They are finished. Trevor Jenkins is in Harrow. He says, good afternoon, just the last English Pope. This is interesting. Hey, guess what? Listen, right? The last English Pope was called Bedmond, right? And guess where he came from? Oh, he was from Bedmond. His name was Nicholas Breakspear. I think he was related to William, no. So Bedmond's in Watford. So Watford did actually achieve something. They had a pope. Sorry, Vinnie Joe. Brilliant. Bedmond is known for two things, ladies and gentlemen. What you learn on Talk Drive. Nicholas Breakspear was the last English pope, and Vinnie Jones also came from what's it called? Bedmond? Nice. Nice, Bedmond. Very good. Nice pub, not that you'd know. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Bristol. Rudy, can you do a Scouse accent?
No, I can't.
Brilliant. Really happy the callers this hour, aren't they?
I don't know what that guy from Bristol was smoking when he was talking about them paying for the NHS. The amount of fraud, the amount of people that come over from other countries using our NHS and they don't pay, you know, because they say they've got no facilities to instruct the payments. But the other thing is, not only are they going to... this is, to me, is just like another thing when Blair did with allowing Eastern Europeans to come over from cheap labour. It's a form of that by doing that, so it's going to undercut anyone in this country. But what about all the cost to all the services like hospitals, schools, all those extra things of housing that they're going to take up? You know, it's costing us more and more and more. They should be paying their fair whack, not that they're paying it in their country. Why should we be paying their national insurance in someone else's country? If they want to come here to work, they work. If they don't want to deal with it, then don't come.
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? And for people who can't see beyond the words, they think... I mean, people will phone and they will say, oh, it's a bit unfair. I'll tell you what's unfair. It's not. This isn't anti-Indian migrant workers, emergency workers. It's not even against Indian companies, right? This is against a government that says the following. When we get in power, we are about growth. We are about growing the economy. First budget, October, Richard III, Rachel Thieves, says to small and medium businesses, I'm going to raise NI, because underneath my ideology is I don't like anybody that's successful and I want to protect workers' rights. So what, you're going to make it difficult for companies to succeed because your energy bills have gone through the roof? Great. So hundreds of thousands of businesses are struggling, many aren't making profit and many have gone bust. When you are a business, as we had a caller on earlier, Rudy, and they listen to that and then they hear that Indian workers can come here and pay no NI and Indian businesses can get away with paying NI under the auspices of, oh, I've made a great trade deal. How does that look to the British people? That is not unfair, it is not racist, it is nothing, it is factual. It is another example, surely, of this government putting the British people about 32nd in the queue. And I think that's why people are hacked off. That's all I'm saying.
But don't you think we should be like the UAE, where what happens there is you're there to work, you're not entitled to anything, you're just there to work, and if you lose your job and you don't get a job within 30 days, you have to leave.
Completely agree, and there isn't a country in the world where any person in this country could go and get the free medical attention you can get on the NHS. And I might be called cynical and I might be dragged off air, but I would respectfully suggest that the fact that the NHS is free at source for almost anybody is another reason so many people choose to come to Great Britain, because I say it almost on a daily basis. If I had any understanding of what it was like to live in a war-torn country, the first thing I would do was I would grab my wife and my kids and take them with me, because I would be scared that they would be, in fact, well, murdered or killed or bombed in my absence. That doesn't happen. These are young men. Second thing I do, Rudy, is I get to a country where there weren't any bombs raining down on my head and I go, oh, but no, I'm going to go to England. I'm going to go to England because I'm going to be treated better. And one of those things is I'm going to get free NHS care. I'm going to get a hotel. I'm going to get everything. Now, all the do-gooders, the bedwetters, jump up and down and go, you don't know what it's like to live it. No, I don't. But I do wish those people could look in the mirror and admit to themselves that the reason we are absolutely just suffering so much at the hands of immigration, in fact, the whole of Europe is certainly in this country, it's because we are too soft and we offer too much. But my bugbear is that that has led to British people not getting what I think they deserve. That's all I'm saying.
Don't you think, then, the solution should be, because France is already a safe country, you can say to them, well, you can't be seeking asylum because you're already in a safe country, so you're not being persecuted.
You are preaching to the converted. You get a tent on a beach in France and they've got 500 million quid and all they do is encourage the boats to leave.
And the second thing is, what we should say is, if you've got no papers, then sorry, we've got to send you back because we cannot process your claim.
Couldn't agree more. Rudy, Rovers or City in Bristol, who do you support?
It's got to be City, isn't it, really?
Get off. Thanks, mate. Jones in Sunderland. How are you, Joni?
Hello. I'm okay and glad to see you. I was born in June 1940.
That makes you 85, Joni.
And to be quite honest, I am just at my wit's end about the state of this country. I am so fed up. I'm fed up of people just tipping up on these shores. Our own people are being turfed out of homes with no-fault evictions. We get these people, and in a couple of years' time, what'll happen? We'll be evil, we'll be horrible, everything is our fault. We'll be that stupid Lammy. He'd be turning round saying we should make reparation for something we did 1,000 years ago.
What do you say to people who say that, just very quickly, your sort of way of looking at this, and by the way, I agree with you, is racist, is unfair, that we don't understand how people are suffering? I talk every day about how I think we should concentrate on the suffering of the people in this country. What do you say, Joni?
Yes, and what gets me is, what about our veterans? I mean, look at the week it is now. Who worries about them? They're turfed out on the street. They're sleeping under viaducts. They get no benefits at all because they have no fixed abode.
Yeah.
That is a damn disgrace, especially what we're celebrating this week. Plus, all these people coming over, we can't cope now. What's going to happen with our NHS? Mr. Sweeting thinks
Couldn't agree more, Joan.
a marvellous job. We'll be needing bunk beds soon.
Do you know what? Completely hand on heart agree with everything, and massively great to have you on, Joan in Sunderland. Thank you very much indeed. 23 minutes to 7 o'clock. Kev is here at 7. Petrie Hoskins from 10 o'clock. Drive till 7, 0344 499 1000. Back. Interesting next. Jack Hardwick, senior showbiz reporter. The Sun will tip you off as to what's in the paper tomorrow. We're coming back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
The legend that is Mike Graham back with Morning Glory tomorrow morning from 6 o'clock. We're still keeping our eyes peeled. The Papal conclave, the secret ballot for the next Pope, is underway in the Sistine Chapel. The view on the television is simply, it's extraordinary. It's the chimney and a seagull. When white smoke comes out, we will have a new Pope. Am I building this up? I'll make it exciting for you, ladies and gentlemen. We found out earlier we could have a Scouse Pope. Cardinal Vincent Nichols is the Scouse. Well, he's actually a Scouser, but he's the Archbishop of Westminster. And ever since they started talking about this, there's been an absolute run on him. He's 33s into 16 to 1 to be the next Pope. Cardinal Vinnie Nichols. Can you imagine Vinnie as the Pope? It'd be amazing. Joe's very exciting. 20 minutes to 7. We said to you last... There he is, our Vin. Look at him. I want that job. I want that job. Look at him. Look at the picture. Just imagine all the way from Eighton and Kirby to the Vatican. Imagine what I could do out there. I've had a fantastic time. Shut up, Kyle. We announced we were going to do this every night. It's fantastic. Our partners, we love the Sun newspaper. Jack Hardwick, senior showbiz reporter. That sounds very impressive.
It does, doesn't it? So, yeah, I'd like to live up to expectation.
You meet all the famous people, don't you?
You know, it's not a bad job. It's not a bad job. It's fun. It's fun.
Good lad. Yesterday, we were speaking to the head of news. We're trying to just give a feeling and a flavour for what's in the paper tomorrow, certainly from showbiz. Massive story, Jack, about Liam Payne leaving an incredible amount of money.
Yeah, so basically he had 24 million, which is an incredible amount for anyone. But I think what's also more shocking is that there was no will.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't realise till today that half of Brits don't have a will, which, you know, I suppose if it's like me, there's not really much to my name, fair enough. But when you're one of the biggest stars on the planet, with 24 million in the bank, and also various properties around the country and around the world, it's just wild that there was no will.
Now, I don't know the legal answer to this, and no doubt somebody will text or call, but or what probate is. Maybe I can help me, but if you leave an amount of money without a will, do you get higher taxed, or does something happen? I don't know. I mean, 24 million quid. Oh, it goes into probate, maybe something like that. Obviously, he tragically passed away in October last year. He's got a son, of course, with Cheryl Cole Bear.
Yeah, so Bear's 8 years old.
He didn't leave it to him?
Well, officially there was nothing, so no instructions. But naturally, because he hasn't got a will, it will all go to his son, which is just his only son, Bear. Obviously, Bear won't get that until he's 18 because, you know, he's not until he's an adult. So that's 10 years' time.
Oh, we're just being told he died intestate, which means no will. But it's interesting. So the money... I'm just really... If anybody can help us out, a lawyer or anything, do you get more tax levied if you don't leave a will? But it's a great point. You should write a will, right?
I should probably... Yeah, I mean, I think most people should do a will, even if you only got a little bit here and there, because the problem is now that anyone could sort of try and claim and say they deserve a bit of money. You know, a lot of families... even that I know over the years, who are just like your average family, have had rows over money.
We've got it. When there is no will, then the deceased will be dying intestate. We said if this happens, the law decides who should deal with the deceased person's money, property and possessions. Only married or civil partners or close relatives can inherit if somebody dies intestate. That would tell me then that this is why it says here Cheryl's key role emerges. So maybe Cheryl Cole will be the person that deals with this.
Exactly. So the courts have decided that Cheryl is an administrator, along with a music lawyer who Liam was friendly with and worked with over the years. So that sort of puts it in her hands a bit. Because, again, there was no will, it's not like she can be the executor of it and she can sort of give it out here and there. I think she lives, obviously, with Bear. Bear's, like, been in her care for all this time. Liam, over the years when I met him, we were always sort of told, don't ask questions about Cheryl or Bear.
Really?
Just because the PRs were quite uptight. Within 30 seconds, he'd have mentioned Bear, he'd have mentioned Cheryl, you'd all be happy. He sort of...
Love of his life, maybe?
Yeah, he couldn't stop himself. He was so proud of that boy. And, you know, he always said in quite a lot of interviews that how he wanted his legacy to be sort of his son. And
I think that's what most fathers should answer if they're asked what their legacy is. It should be the dad that you were to your kids, right?
Exactly. And I remember I interviewed him probably about 5 years ago now, and he was telling me that he was really proud because Bear could recognise his music on the radio. So he'd ask him for Daddy's music, and they'd play the songs.
When the tragedy happened, it was October last year, and I tread carefully for a reason, because I met him. When I was doing my show in New York all those years ago, I went to a One Direction concert at Madison Square Garden. Don't even ask me why. And the boys invited me, and they were young and fresh-faced. That was 2012. Phenomenon. One Direction. All the arguments and the stuff about, you know, do people in pop music get protected enough? People have demons. Money is a dangerous thing. He had a hard time, didn't he? But he should be remembered as an extraordinary thing that he achieved and they achieved, wasn't it?
Exactly. I think anyone's got demons. I think the industry almost prize on that at times, because I think if you're searching that level of fame, maybe you're missing something in life and you're wanting external sort of adoration.
I would, tell me I'm wrong, I would go further. I think that sort of fame, you could never... when that fame hits you, right?
Yeah.
You know, people say, well, don't you think... You can't legislate for that. You can't... There's no way of beginning to explain what that does. A little bit, right?
Yeah.
And that goes, or whatever. It's very, very, very strange. This man was a phenomenon, right? His group, one of the biggest groups in the world. When that split up, I think that was probably the beginning of it. They all wanted to go out. Harry Styles was obviously hugely successful, and probably within the group they wanted the same sort of buzz. But, you know, so many of us in our lives want to be successful and then just enjoy the fruits of their labour. What I'd say about people that are in the public eye, so many people can't let go and they want it again and again and again.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I think it's almost like a hit. Like, obviously, I'm not in that sort of the industry, but I think once you've got a bit of that success, it'd be weird to suddenly
oxygen,
not
right?
want it again. Yeah, you've sort of, your success and your career is based on what other people think about you. So it must be very hard to go from the massive level that One Direction had to then he was successful. You know, he'd got some big songs, but let's be honest, no matter what they said, they're going to compare themselves to Harry Styles, who's absolutely turned into a phenomenon in itself. It'll be weird if they didn't compare themselves.
Of course.
On X Factor, they all went on as solo artists.
Yeah.
So there was always that drive to be a solo artist first.
And they were put together, of course.
They were put together. They loved the band, they had an amazing time, but they all wanted to be solo at first. So I think of course you're going to compare yourself. Of course it's a weird world. But like Liam had just finished his second album. Unfortunately, it's not been released because obviously he passed away.
Is this front page tomorrow, the Liam Payne story?
He is front page again, yeah. So it's just really tragic, I think, because at the end of the day, he is someone's son, he is someone's dad.
Yeah.
And I think he's 31, so he's literally a few weeks different to me. So on a sort of human level, I can relate to it in terms of we started out roughly at the same time in the industry, obviously very different paths. But like, I've met him maybe about 6 or 7 times.
What was he like?
He was lovely. Like I said earlier, he always wanted to give you a story. He got the game, so he would know that, you know, he wasn't meant to talk about Cheryl or Bear that day. He knows that's what we wanted.
Somebody once told me about journalism, and, you know, if you're in the public eye and you do a story, it's like a business deal. Everybody needs to leave the meeting or the table thinking they've got something out of it. So if you can give something that's okay, that impresses them, and then they don't, you know, all that sort of stuff. But of course he knew how to play the game. Just a real sad tragedy, because he was 31 years of age, mate. Do you know what I mean? That's nothing, is it?
Yeah, he reminds me of like Robbie. I know obviously they were friends, but Robbie plays the game. He would, if you saw Robbie at an event and he wasn't really meant to be doing interviews that day, if you went up to him, he'd give you a few questions. I did that a few times with him. Same with Liam. I was at an award ceremony, and he didn't do the red carpet because he was the biggest star. He wasn't doing chats that day. But I went up to him just in the hotel foyer. Whoever he was with, I think he was a manager, said, "Oh, no chats." Liam overrode him and was like, "No, it's fine. I'll give you some."
But that's trust, and that's building a relationship. Excellent. So that is front page. Anything else you can give us? Any other little?
That's front page. We've got another twist in the Beckham family row, which is seemingly never ending, which I'm hooked on. I think it's fascinating.
Well, this apparently, because you get me, I'm a right old gossip, right? This is apparently Romeo's girlfriend, isn't it?
I mean, depends who you believe. I think from
who used to know Brooklyn Beckham when they were hanging out together when they were 18. That's the story, isn't it?
Exactly. So basically, Brooklyn's ex is now dating Romeo.
But is it his ex?
Well, this is what I was going to say. So a lot of people are saying she is the ex Kim, but Cruz Beckham, so the youngest son, got a bit Instagram happy last night, and he commented on some posts confirming that actually Brooklyn was never really dating Kim.
And he's got a bird who's about 30, hasn't he? The youngest one.
Do you know what? They all look like posh. They all look a little.
You note, see?
They have. They all
see. Yeah.
Keep it in the family. Do you know what I mean?
The two biggest nepo baby. I mean, would you not want King Charles to sit down with David Beckham and talk about how both their sons are being a pain in the backside right now?
That's what we get them on. Get them on. That's what we need.
That would have been a Jeremy Kyle show, wouldn't it? Brooklyn Beckham.
Yeah.
And Prince Harry with their fathers.
Sorted. Commission that?
No, I don't think it's going to happen. Listen, it's a real pleasure. Tomorrow, we really appreciate Jack Harbowitz, senior showbiz reporter, front page of The Sun. Liam Payne, £24 million, leaving a legacy, but without a will, dying intestate. That will be dealt with. But it's a really powerful message. You should get a will, right?
Yeah, that's the point of it. Do it.
Good man. Jack, thank you very much indeed. 10 to 7, this is Talk Drive.
and they've been shown up to be wrong. And I think that people are very unwilling to admit that they're wrong and find it quite hard to row back sometimes, even though in this instance they've got the perfect excuse. You know, we made a mistake. We and everyone else misinterpreted the law. But now we've had clarification on it. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. A woman is born female. A man is born male. It's very easy to separate on those basis.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
7 minutes away from Kev O'Sullivan. Steve's in Burnley. Jez, the job I wouldn't let an 18-year-old do is to walk my dogs. They'd spend more time gawping at their phone than they'd be going in one direction. The dogs are going in the other. Steve's in Lincoln, that's true. Dennis? He's in Manchester. Afternoon, Jez. I wonder if this new reset Sir Keir Starmer is going to do with the European Union later this month will follow the same tax rules he's just signed with India. No national insurance for EU businesses or workers coming over from EU nations. You read it here first. You watch. You could be right. James Lovelock. That's a great name. Love your show. Why is the PM so hell-bent on destroying this country? If it's just power for its own sake, then it'll end up with a country that's worth sweet FA and certainly not the Britain we all want. Every time he implements another policy, to me, it's yet another nail in our country's two-tier coffin. 18-year-olds, anything that needs an attention span of more than 5 minutes and some world experience. Interesting. Nick from Who. What is Who? H-O-O. Does anybody know where Who is? Do you know that? You're all looking at me blindly. I've no idea. Don't forget that 80 years ago, 18-year-old men were flying Lancaster bombers and Spitfires. They helped win the Battle of Britain. Nick in Who, wherever Who is. Who isn't it? Anyway, he's at Whoville, is it? You're right. Craig Tate from Durham. At 18, I was trusted on the ground in multiple areas in Iraq, carrying a rifle and trusted to make the decisions to use that rifle, if needed. But for better rail systems, I'm all for driverless trains. Good man. Paul's in Devon. As a train driver of 30 years driving trains at 125 miles an hour, do people really believe that driverless trains are the answer? One of my main responsibilities is to look out for dangerous items on the track, animals, large road vehicles, people, and to react as quickly as possible to apply the emergency brake and blow the horn. A driverless train can't do that. And 18-year-olds to drive a train is utterly ridiculous. Paul's on it. He's on it. He's on it. He's on it. Who's this? Terry in Slough. What is this Prime Minister... Oh, what this Prime Minister lacks for in intelligence, he absolutely makes up for in stupidity. Rob and Lynn in Ramsden Heath. I thought Starmer said he gets it, but he's decided he will do what he always does and totally ignores what the public wants. He forgets that they work for us. Rob Shaw. Hello, Rob. Good afternoon to you. Marge. Mr Starmer, having acquired the status of PM for the UK, is now set up for life. Great pension, police protection forever, and the endless thousands of pounds in talks and walk-on parts. He's like Khan, Jez. I'm here and can do what I like, and I will just make London population to my liking. It is going to be a nightmare. Karen from the Toon. Starmer, and we did this earlier, but she's right. Starmer removed both portraits of Thatcher and Churchill, and when Trump praised Churchill, flip-flop Starmer rushed straight back to number 10 to put it out of storage and back on the wall. Doesn't that sum him up? Probably. This is interesting. Trevor, you'll love this, right? The next Pope could be called Vinny. Vinnie Jones was from Bedmond. The best pub in Bedmond is called The Bells, and the bells will ring out when a new Pope has been chosen. What are the chances of that? Graham's in Portsmouth. 1 minute only, G. What you got?
God, I've got to be quick then, won't I? Yeah, Boris Johnson, him come back. No way. You're on about Winston Churchill again today. Churchill was his hero. He had his Churchill moment with COVID. He could have stood up and said, no, we can't afford to do this. But he didn't. He bowled it. He blew it. We could have done the Sweden approach. And the net zero thing, going on about Kermit the Frog and stuff, he's not a Conservative.
You know what I said earlier? There are many instances where I've been on this station before the last election and been extolling the virtues of Boris Johnson, but the more you dig into it, you are absolutely right, Graham. The reason that so many people moved to reform from the Tory party was that they felt that those archetypal Tory values of and I say it every day, low taxation, a strong military, strong borders, you know, a fear of the police, not a fear of crime, right? He didn't do that. That's why. And when Starmer stood up and said about reform, when they talked about those things, that's far right. It's not far right. It's what so many of us were brought up to believe in, ingrained in us, right?
I say, Jeremy, I've been a Conservative voter all my life, okay?
Yeah.
And I voted Conservative at the last election because I voted for reform. No, I voted for reform because they have Conservative policies.
Yeah, I completely agree. Do you think Nigel Farage will be the next Prime Minister of this country?
I hope so. I certainly hope so.
What do you say to the detractors who say he hasn't got the experience?
No, he's got experience in life. That's what you need, isn't it? A businessman, like I say, unlike these charlatans we've got. I'm not against a merger as long as he's in control of it, because I think realistically that's what they'll have to do. But
look at what we started this programme with. If you replicated the voting that took place in Runcorn across the whole of the country at the next election, I know it's one constituency and in the north, but if that was replicated, when people talk about reform and the Tories, that would have given Reform 400 plus seats, Labour 150, and believe it or not, this is a fact, the polls out, Tories would have 6 or 7 seats. I don't believe the Tories can recover for years and years. I believe that I don't even believe Reform should be talking about a merger with the Tories. I think it should be crushing the Tories into the ground and telling the British people that they believe in Britain and they've got a chance to form the next government. Whether that happens or not, I don't know, but it couldn't be worse than we've got right now, could it?
God, no. Anything. Let's just get a Conservative policies in. If they're called reform, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
they can do it without them, that's brilliant.
Can you do a Scouse accent to finish the show?
No chance. I'm still struggling with my Hampshire one.
Is that where you live, Hampshire, is it?
Yeah, Portsmouth.
Where are you from, though?
Portsmouth.
Oh, so you're struggling with your own accent?
Yeah.
That's quite depressing, isn't it? OK, all right, lad. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
That was Graham in Portsmouth. Thank you to the A-team today. Thank you to the amazing Jodie. She'll be very excited today. Kevin O'Sullivan's going to walk into the studio and expect I'm going to give him 3 seconds. But quick as lightning, straight in front of the camera. Let's ignore everything. Try and get the thing in. It's all going